What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Wednesday live stream. What's up? Hope everyone's doing well. Um, so let's get started. I have this video, right? This, I guess, a podcast or whatever that looked interesting, so I wanted to check it out. Okay, I want to check it out. So let's check this out together. Looked in. Let's check this out together. It's a long one, but it seems interesting. So let's check it out.
To me.
It's interesting that you brought up my skin color because I thought that was the exact opposite of what the point you're trying to make in the book.
You're very reductive. I thought you were a lot more intellectual than this. These things, if we have questions about these things or we think, I don't think that part of it's right, can I have a reasonable discussion about that? We're often going to be shouted down. And I see that on both sides of the political divide. I see that on the left and I see that on the right. Well, if you think that, you're with them then. And so that's why I wrote this book.
That's a very good point. And I think right now, that is clearly happening on the right as well. Like I experience this on a daily basis. There's a whole bunch of narratives that people on the right in America have about Ukraine. And anytime I'm like, well, factually, actually, you're with them then. I see that a lot. And I think that's human behavior. What I found interesting is, and this is what I'd be keen to explore as part of this conversation, if you don't mind, is you said in the blurb for your book that you're not anti-woke.
I don't think I would have, did I say anti-woke? I don't think I would have used the word woke, but maybe I did.
It says in the blurb of the book, but I guess...
I'm definitely not anti-woke, no.
Yes.
But
what I was going to ask you is, why is that? Why aren't you anti-woke?
Well, I think, what does woke mean to you? That's my question.
All the very things that you said are the reason you wrote your book. The reason that people would say we're anti-woke, I'm certainly anti-woke, I have no issue describing it, is I'm anti you used this wrong phrase, you made fun of this thing that I don't like, you're not sufficiently inclusive of this blah, 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 you're a man, you need to be quiet while other people talk, all of this stuff. I reject this entirely. I reject the identity politics of it. I reject the censorship aspect of it. I reject the obsession with victimhood, which I think is damaging, and it's making people into victims. That's what I mean by woke, and that's what I'm...
100%. I agree 100%. I'm anti-woke. And what he just said, okay? What he just said, I agree with 100%.
I'm against.
I think the reason I would describe myself as not anti-woke is because I think what a lot of people mean by woke, and it's a soup, it's a rich soup. Mm-hmm. So you can take out certain things and go, that's woke. But I think a lot of people see it and go, well, woke is, an idea about gender or an idea about feminism that I haven't fully explored. It just sounds new, or it just sounds, like something that I don't have any particular knowledge of or empathy for. So that goes in the woke basket because it's new. So to name something that, to pull something out of a hat off the top of my head, there's a lot of diverse casting now. Mm-hmm. So I see people getting very angry when they see a cast on television, and there might be a couple of brown and black people in the cast, and they say, well, they don't need to be there, or this is not historically accurate, and they get very, very angry about that. And I feel very strongly that we want our television to represent the people in...
Here's my thing, right? The whole thing where if it's a diverse cast, so what? Cool, great. I don't think, in my personal opinion, people are angry if they see a diverse cast. Let's say a good example, okay? A good example is that what people would be, I'm not saying angry, but would have a strong opinion against. Let's say Harry Potter thing. You already have a source material. And then you uh you purposely change things up. So let's say I think I don't know if this is confirmed or not, right? If you guys are Harry Potter fans, Snape, okay, a white portrayed character. Yo, Mr. Smith, what's up, my brother? Makes Asylum great again. In the show that will be coming, is in development. They're gonna race swap him to be black. Okay, great. Why? That's the thing where people may have opinions again. I don't know. Many people say they have a strong opinion against seeing a diverse cast in an original content. I don't think so.
In our community, I live in London, and I have very close friends, chosen family who are black and brown. Some of whom are actors, and I want to see them on TV. They're brilliant. And I really notice that when it first happened, I might have noticed it. And then you get into a show and you don't notice. So even if something's set in Victorian times and you think, well, they might not have been black or brown, you just stop noticing and you just see that it's a great performance. And then the other thing is, if when you look a bit deeper, you find out, of course, there were black and brown people in Victorian London at that time. And sometimes people say that person wouldn't have been black or brown. And historically, when you look in...
Look at what Mr. Smith said, okay? This is a thing where I hate diversity for diversity's sake. Because now we're doing it where it doesn't seem, yeah, I did get demonetized. Because of some videos I made, YouTube didn't like it. So I've been, I have a strike. So I have to wait a couple, like until June to reapply. It is what it is. That's why if you guys want to help, there's my info. But if you don't, all good. I still make these videos regardless. But this is the thing where people, I feel like they want it to feel natural, okay? Where it makes sense. A school, yes, it's diverse. But then, let's say a character that was originally white, now it turns to black. It's now you're just making diverse for diverse sake, right? And it's like it's you are shoving it down people's throats. That's when some people may not like it.
Into it, they actually were. So that's an example of something that I think people just go woke, and I think no, that needs more analysis, surely.
Fine, but I there's a lot to quibble with there, which we can. But I guess to most people, I don't think your characterization is quite accurate. I don't think most people's view of what woke is this thing that they don't understand, but because it's new, they don't like it. It's more like suddenly we all have to pretend that if you say something that about your identity, now it's true. Like if I say I'm a woman, I become a woman in that moment. And a lot of people don't dislike that because it's new. A lot of people don't dislike that because they think it's factually inaccurate.
Sure. Well, that's a very, very big subject. There's a very, very big, chunky chapter on that in my book. And I think that's something that...
What's your argument on that?
So what you just said there is if someone says they're a woman, you have to accept it. Is that...
Yeah, but that's been the line. Trans women are women.
Right.
And if you...
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it works, right? Sometimes it does work. I just feel like the majority of the time, it feels unnatural, in my opinion. Okay? That's where I think. Because let's say this, right? In my personal opinion, someone like Nick Fury, okay, change him to black. Well, he wasn't necessarily a popular character to begin with. He wasn't that big of a character. He was relatively some people may consider him a C-list hero. Now, let's say a popular franchise like the Harry Potter thing. Well, here's the thing where it doesn't make sense. Or Little Mermaid, a popular IP, Little Mermaid. That's the thing where it's like needless.
Say otherwise, you're a bigot.
Okay, so what I'm arguing in my book is I am looking at the the historical fight for two.
Today will be a more, it's going to be a little bit more serious, I guess, content, because I'm going to react to this, what I've seen, the clips I've seen, this crazy feminist. So we're going to be watching this feminist spewing her craziness. But thank you guys for joining. Hope you guys like the video.
Other sorts of rights that has happened. And I say in the introduction, actually, this is a book of...
Oh my God. Mr. Smith, exactly. I grew up on 80s and 90s movies, okay? Alien, Tango and Cash, all the Schwarzenegger movies, all the Sylvester Stallone movies. You could continue naming all this shit. A bunch of white people. I loved it. I never cared. Oh my God, I wish the lead character was Asian. It really didn't bother me. It didn't come to mind. I said this to his friend. I'm an action head. I'm maybe your typical, men action, loving action. Just give me cool moments. Just give me badass fight. Give me badass scenes.
Ideas. And I know a lot of people will go to this chapter first. It's called The Conversation About Gender Nonconformity. And I say, ideally read it in order because I'm building an argument. But if you do go here first, and if you are triggered, to use the name of your podcast, by this, if this is something that you feel very, very strongly about.
Oh, you know what? It's like Jackie Chan was the beast. Oh, it's a shame that he's getting older because he can't make the movies like he used to.
Whatever side of this, wherever in this kaleidoscope of this discussion you're coming from, please be aware this is some ideas in a book of ideas. This is not the first or last word. This is not a new doctrine that I'm delivering for a new cult. This is some ideas in a book of ideas. So this is a complex discussion. So anybody coming in and going, you're not a woman, that's the end of it. I don't need to hear anything more about that. Or anybody coming in and going, you're not allowed to ask any questions about sport, that's just the end of it. Both of those I would question. And I would say, this is a big, complicated topic. And in my book, this is a book of ideas. This is a book of ideas, and this is some ideas about gender nonconformity.
So what are your ideas about it?
So I want to bed that down there, okay?
Okay.
What I'm doing is, first of all, looking at how the brain works and why our brain is sort of a prediction machine. It's the autocomplete on your phone, really. It's always going through the world and it's looking for things that aren't as the brain would expect them to be. So if you got on a bus and the bus driver was dressed like a clown, you would double take. Now, there's no reason to suspect that clown is going to hurt you or that there's nothing pejorative about the bus driver being dressed like a clown, but you would notice. If you got on the bus driver was dressed as a bus driver, you probably wouldn't notice the bus driver at all. If you're in London where you get on buses and you don't say anything to the bus driver, there's so many people. And someone said later, who was the bus driver? What'd they look like? You probably wouldn't.
Bro, you are naming top. Those are some. Yes, old feminist babble. Yes. No,
but as soon as they're dressed like a clown, your brain goes, what? I've got questions. Now, the reason your brain can't do that every time, like a bus, like toddlers go, a bus driver. That's because they're still learning what's normal, what's to be expected. So we can't do that. Our brain's got stuff going on all the time, and it needs to save itself for all this other work. So if it's what's expected, it doesn't remark. So if 30% of bus drivers dress like clowns for a year, you would stop noticing.
I don't think I would, no.
I
would continue to notice that they're dressed like clowns.
For how long?
For all eternity, because I know what a bus driver is supposed to look like.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So your brain works different from other human beings then in that case.
Because if we accept your premise of how people's brains work, yes. But
okay.
My assertion to you is that a lot of people have a standard that they expect, that they learn at a certain point, and they don't stop noticing things being different to that. Like if everybody started walking around naked, I wouldn't at one point go, actually, yeah, I don't remember a time when nobody, you see what I mean?
I do, but I think there's a whole different bunch of semiotics that go with nudity.
What's up, Sarah Phil? What's up? Thank you for stopping by.
That don't go with clown costumes.
Fine, whatever. Let's carry on with you, please. Carry on.
Here's an example. In the 1960s, Mary Tyler Moore had to fight really hard to be allowed to wear trousers on screen because people still double taking at women wearing trousers. When women first started wearing trousers, women were arrested in trousers. Now, and I'll tell you, and it's because that's a gender signifier, and it repulsed people. It looked weird. Same as long hair. Think about a Victorian man. Have you got a picture of a Victorian man, Oscar Wilde, in your mind? How long's his hair?
Pretty long.
Pretty long, right.
And the plane.
Why is short hair masculine?
Any
ideas?
Can you take us back to the trans bit? Because I'm not following the connection here.
Okay, so I'm taking you somewhere. Trust me, it's all right. We're getting there.
Okay.
So the reason short hair is masculine is because in the First World War, men went into the trenches, had to have short hair because of the lice. And then other men who hadn't been down in the trenches wanted to demonstrate they could be as masculine, they could have survived the trenches. By the 1960s, hair like Oscar Wilde's, long Victorian hair, was so femme that when men walked down the street with that longer hair that came in the 60s, other men would shout, "Oh, give us your handbag, love," and sort of sexist heckles. So that's how long it takes to get something to be normal or for something to be seen as femme or masc. That's why I say if for all eternity you continue to notice clowns as bus drivers, even if you still had comments on them, you would start to edit them out because nobody now looks at a man with this sort of length hair and double takes, or looks at a woman in trousers and double takes, because as a society we get used to something. So anything that's outside the norm, what happens is we notice it, and each generation has those alarm alerts, which is this could be dangerous because it's different. And we have that with gender. You can see it again and again and again and again. And we know it's arbitrary because women were wearing trousers in Asia for hundreds of years when Western women weren't. That didn't look, it's not something absolutely normal or natural. So what we have to do then is look at, is there any history of transgenderism throughout the ages? And I looked into this because I looked at indigenous societies, and I thought, well, there will be some, people fear what's different. So there will be indigenous societies where there weren't transgender people accepted. And I looked and I looked and I looked and I could not find any. It was completely normal in most societies for this to be not a binary thing, for it not to be male and female, but for it to be more like a scale. So if you walk past a building and, a bar, and someone says, "Is it loud in there?" you understand that person is saying, yes, it is loud in there, but they mean loud for them, because there's loud and there's soft, there's high and there's low, there's young and there's old. We're all old to someone and we're all young to someone, right? We're all old to a 7-year-old.
Well, for me, it's like I'm watching this. Is like this is the poison. Right? I've said this before. This is the poison that is seeping in society. This is what is affecting and damaging women's mindset, in my personal opinion. I think this is the black mark of society right now. Right? These illogical, emotional, highly emotional, delusional women. Feminism. I get it, right? The creation of feminism, women's rights. Cool. Now we have it. What's the point now? Now it's just to push insanity. Feminism is just pushing delusion and insanity.
We're all young to an 80-year-old, right? So there's very few things where we go, it's this or it's that. You might have heard of the American Two-Spirit people, and a Native American Two-Spirit. You guys heard of that?
Yeah.
That was created like around in the 90s at a conference, an LGBTQ plus conference, when indigenous people, Native American people, were like, we have to explain it to the Westerners because they keep using it. Was like a sort of slur for indigenous queer people that was often used. And they said, right, they see it as this and that. So let's say we're two. So whenever you hear that third gender in Indigenous spaces, it's not really, that's done through a Western framework of two and therefore a third. But if you talk to people in Indigenous cultures, it's like it's not a third for us because it's more like a piano scale. So if that is in Indigenous cultures, it seems unlikely that there are no people in the West who also fit somewhere up and down this gender scale. And I think what's happened in the West is the legal framework is you've got to say you're male or you've got to say you're female, and that's it. So if I have to be in one of these boxes in order to get any rights, this is the one I belong in, because that's the one that feels more like me. But if you take it back to its kind of human roots, we're so obsessed with our own frameworks and we really do think there's no truth outside them. But one of the lenses I'm looking at this through is I'm adopted. I was given away at birth. In any other time before now, I would have been an orphan. Oliver Twist had one living parent. It doesn't necessarily mean both your parents are dead. It means no one in your family can or will look after you. And orphan rights is a fantastic something I've written about in the book. If you look at orphan rights, it's absolutely fascinating. Orphans were massive scapegoats in Victorian times. It's a totally different person. And then you can parallel that with gay rights. If you look at the history of gay rights, in the 60s, many gay men were broken. You know, you watch something like The Boys in the Band, which is a play and it's been made into a movie about gay men in the 60s in New York and how miserable they were and how much self-loathing there was and how they kind of went for each other because there were two options. One was be in the closet, be married, come and get handjobs under the bridge. The other was be out and be giving the handjobs under the bridge. And that was it. And so the misery those men lived with and the suicide rate and the mental health breakdowns, and we've seen what's happened since we've endorsed and legalized and for gay men who now live in our society freely, and women, but it's easy to see with gay men because of criminalization and decriminalization. And so, your and my gay friends now will be, running the PTA and, living their lives on the outside and being their full selves and not living in depression and marginalization. This doesn't mean there's no homophobia, but it means the legalization and the endorsing of language has functionally changed who is capable of being productive, happy, whole members of society. And that's great for society as well as the individuals. So I'm looking at trans rights from both of those avenues and saying, what would happen if we realized that our model is not the only model? There is absolute precedence for human beings to be fluid in gender and for them to be gender non-conforming. Just as much with orphans, Indigenous societies don't have, many Indigenous societies, they don't have the concept of orphan because the whole community will look after you and your aunt is also your mum type feel. And so it's a Western framework that delivers us orphans.
Yeah,
do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean, but I don't agree. And the reason is that I'm not a Western person by birth, and Francis has experiences of outside. And the idea that male and female are Western categories is just not, it's not true. In fact, I would
not just Western, but you
yes,
see what I mean about Indigenous societies?
Yes, but Indigenous societies are like 0.0001% of the entire population of human beings on the planet. And the more east you go, the more the traditional societies are, and the more the male and female rigidity is enforced, actually. The West is actually pretty loose about them. The other thing that I don't understand about the argument is that it sounds to me like we're confusing gender nonconformity. In other words, a feminine man or a man who doesn't comply with the stereotypes of what we expect of a man and a woman who doesn't comply and wears trousers or whatever.
And that's, you know what he just said right there, right? This is what I hate. If you're not the most manly man, you should be trans, right? You should be a trans woman. If you're not the most feminine, right? You should be a trans man. It's like, what the fuck is that? This is the thing where I had, what was it? I think it was Skull or, what's it, Skull? Maybe it was, or Just. Skull or Just, right? One of the chatters. Saying that, yes, he's not stereotypical, the most masculine of masculine men. I'm not either. But I swear to God, I'm never really would want to be a trans woman. Okay? That's the thing where I hate the thing where I think we are poisoning young generations. Where, okay, if you are a tomboy, you must want to be a man. Right? So change a woman into a man. Change a young girl to become a eventual man. If you are not the most masculine of masculine men, right? You're not like jacked up or like hopped up on testosterone. Then go ahead, start your process of turning into a woman. That's the thing where that's the thing where I'm seeing that more and more in this generation, this new age, where I think it's just, I think the left is more strict with what they view as gender. Because if you're not the most masculine man, so what? You're just not the most masculine man. You're still a man. Period.
With claiming that you are the opposite sex. These are completely separate things. And the third thing is, and we've obviously had a lot of people on the show to talk about this, the gay rights model doesn't work very well as a comparison, not least because it's actually gay people that are at the forefront of opposing trans ideology and say, if I had been alive today as a young person, people would have told me I'm trans, even though I'm gay, or even though I'm autistic, or even though I'm this. And the fourth difference is that decriminalizing homosexuality was about preventing the ill treatment of gay people. When we're talking about transgenderism, the way that we've been talking about it in our societies until recently, until we're treating ban puberty blockers, is that because we have this ideology of compassion for people who may feel differently, we then would prescribe very significant medical treatments to young children who are not actually capable of making rational decisions about their long-term future. So for all of those reasons, I don't really see the argument that you're making. Let me introduce you to the people I work with to protect.
I think you can see the argument that I'm making. You don't agree with the argument I'm making, but you've made 4 points there, so I need to take them one by one. What was the first one?
So the first, well, I don't remember the order in which I made them. I think the first one was that in the idea that the male-female binary is a Western concept is just not factually accurate.
Okay, so stop there.
Yeah.
I'm talking about indigenous people who lived all over the world until we had. So when you say the trouble with saying it's not Western is colonization did bring a lot of more fixed ideas. So I'm
hold on a second. Sorry, no, I'm not going to let that pass. Are you saying people in the Duchy of Muscovy 2,000 years ago?
No. But I only just started the sentence. So I said, for example, colonization did export a lot of very Christian, quote unquote Christian, not necessarily Christian ideals around the world. So my example was, I think it's hard to talk about the whole globe, but my example was
100%, Mrs. Smith. I agree. Masculinity is actually very fluid. But I think it's like the left is more trying to, if you're not like stereotypical masculine, you must be trans. You must be of the LGBT whatever community. I think that's a dangerous notion.
In Australia, you may know Australian Aboriginals have the idea of brother boys and sister girls, and they are genderqueer people. But of course, when let's be honest, white Christian colonizers came and turned up. They said that's not a thing and you're not allowed to do that, and said that that's wrong, and there was a lot of shaming that's gone on. Now that obviously has infiltrated into the Aboriginal population now. There's still brother boys and there's still sister girls, but there's a lot of homophobia in the Aboriginal population that didn't exist before it was imposed.
But you're not addressing my argument. My argument is not that there aren't indigenous communities where these practices exist. My argument is that that is by far and away a tiny minority of the global population of humans.
I don't really understand how that matters, though, because it's still the archaic way people behave.
If 99% of people do something and 0.1% of people do something different.
Do you know why indigenous populations are so small, though? Isn't it?
The point I'm trying to make to you is...
Do you know why they're so small?
Hold on a second.
Do you know why they're so small?
You're deflecting from the argument that I'm making.
Not really.
Yes, you are. The argument that I made to you is when you said this is a Western concept, I gave you examples. For example, the Duchy of Muscovy or Russia 600 years ago.
So when I say Western, I'm speaking because that's where I'm having the arguments, is in the West. Now, obviously, there are Eastern places too, but I'm talking about Western frameworks. It's unlikely I'm going to come in here in Kent and start talking about, Far Eastern concepts.
I think you're mishearing what I'm saying. You made the claim that outside of the West, in indigenous societies, these things are very normal. And the point I'm making to you is, while it may be the case in certain tiny communities that exist, hold on a second, that exist in certain tiny communities, bless you, Francis, outside of the West, there are also lots of other civilizations outside of the West where the gender binary that you were talking about as a Western concept is actually much more firmly enforced than it is in the West. In the Islamic civilization, in the Chinese civilization, in Russia, all over the world, in South, pretty much everywhere. So bringing up tiny indigenous communities does not prove the case.
Okay, but indigenous communities tend to be, I think, it's more archaic.
It is. See, this is the thing where it's because it fits your narrative. Okay, this is the thing where it's only the left. Only feminists, only delusional people use the small percent to prove their arguments. Just like, how a lot of red pill content, right? A lot of men content, we generalize. Because this is a thing where conversations like this will go nowhere if you use, personally, what happened to me? You know what? Women love the nice guys. When it happens to me, all the women around me loves the nice guys. Great for you, right? The 1% of the 1% of the 1%. That doesn't work. generally. That doesn't work for the masses because you wonder why. Right? That's the shit. That's the thing where this is the part of women's flaw in their arguments. They like to use microcosms. Okay? They like to use personal experiences. They like to use small anecdotes, right? Small studies, small examples to actually push their logic to the masses. That's the thing where it don't make sense. You can't use what I'm not saying necessarily works, but what's, you can't use the logic of the few to imply it to the masses. It's just no. I don't think that works.
More what it was before we brought in all these religious frameworks. You're still talking about the Muslim world. You're still talking about an Abrahamic framework.
Okay, what about the Chinese?
I don't know. I haven't looked into the Chinese
They
enough about.
1.4 billion
Sure,
people.
but if you probably looked into indigenous Chinese culture, that archaic before we had a lot of. China now is not a great example. I think you'll understand why, because of a fairly extreme regime with not great human rights. So I think what I'm trying to look at, if you really look at what I'm saying, is that there are other frameworks that are perhaps more human, that are more
What
that
makes
are
them
less.
more human?
Well, they're less driven by controlling
You
regimes
like
or
them
controlling
more, I
religions.
get it, but I don't think that makes them more human. If 99% of humans do A, then it seems to me that A is more human.
You must know. You're a bright man.
I am,
You
thank
must know. You must know. You're a public intellectual. You must know that 99%, given the recent population boom of people under draconian governments, under draconian binary religious ideals, doesn't dwarf an indigenous culture that has been there. Australian Aboriginals are the oldest indigenous culture in the world. Do you know why there's so few of them? We killed them.
Yes.
We committed a genocide.
Why were we able to do that? Why were we able to do that?
What are you implying?
I'm just asking you the question.
Are you implying because we're better?
No.
What are you implying?
We were technologically far more advanced. That's what I'm implying.
This is the thing. The winners write history. Fucking live with it. Like, bitch, like, seriously. Okay? Who are you? Great. This is a thing where you love indigenous people, okay? Go live in huts. Go back, right? And live their lifestyle. No. You want to take advantage. You want to live and prosper under Western advances. But no, you want to use Aboriginal philosophies? You're stupid. You're absolutely idiotic.
What's not clear about that?
So you're saying...
I'm saying we were technologically more advanced. Would you
So you're
disagree
saying
with
we're
that?
superior to Australian Aboriginals?
That's quite the opposite of what I'm saying. I'm not saying we were superior. I'm saying we were technologically more advanced.
So how is that the opposite?
Superior implies a moral quality. I'm not making any moral implication. You seem to be. But what I'm saying is...
I think most people would hear it that way.
No.
Again, you're a very intelligent man. How would most people hear that?
Most people would hear what I'm saying for what I'm saying, which is...
Don't think they would.
Somebody...
See, fucking, that's how women fucking argue. They interpret it how they want to interpret it. Bitch, listen to the words. Listen to the words. This is a thing where, you know what? Like, they listen to react, right? Not listen to fucking understand. This is why, honestly, why women can't have, women in general, not all women, okay? Women in general can't have good, productive conversations. Because here's the thing where she's getting triggered, right? She's getting into her emotions. Oh, are you saying you're superior than the Aboriginals? What he said was 100% true. Advancements. Okay? Now, whether you view them as superior or not, that's up to you. But what he said was 100% true. This is how nations can dominate other nations. Advancements, right? Advancements. If you have better, more advanced technology, more advanced fighting systems than the other person.
My mother's South America, and I have indigenous heritage. I don't see it that way. A lot of my grandmother's ancestors were wiped out by the conquistadors, whether it's by they came in executed them, or it was disease brought in by conquistadors.
Yeah. So
I don't interpret it that way, if I'm being honest.
So what's the point of this question
The
then?
point of this question is
because we came in with our better gendered binaries,
sorry.
and therefore we were
Deborah,
able to
this
kill
is going
them.
to work a lot better if you just hear the point I'm making instead of
I
getting...
really cannot understand what it could possibly be other than we are better.
well, let me explain it to you what it could possibly be. And
What's it got to do with the gender binary?
your argument, we're just talking about the argument, and you seem to get quite heated about this, which is completely unnecessary. You think it's necessary?
I'm a bit stunned by what you're implying.
No, you're acting in a kind of passive-aggressive way, which indicates that you're not happy.
I genuinely am being 100% authentic. My visceral reaction to a white man sitting and saying to me,
white man.
and why were we able to commit genocide on them, and then just pausing.
Yes.
Is very visceral to me.
Well, let's go back. First of all, it's interesting that you brought up my skin color because I thought that was the exact opposite of the point you're trying to make in the book. But anyway, let's come back to the argument.
You haven't read my book, so you wouldn't know what the point is.
You said that the point of your book is it's all about you can't say this as this person and whatever. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
You're very reductive. I thought you were a lot more intellectual than this.
I think this is very revealing, but let's come back to the argument. The argument you were making was that the Aboriginal society and other indigenous societies, as you call them, were more human because whatever reason, and they were therefore models for emulation for us.
I don't think I said more human. I said there is something fundamentally human.
More human. Yeah.
There's something fundamentally of how humans are before there's a whole heap of religious imposition and a whole heap of totalitarian imposition. That's what I'm saying. I think we can learn a lot from indigenous societies. I don't think you can say there's fewer of them, therefore they don't count.
That's not what I said.
When they were...
I didn't say they don't count. What I said is if 99% of a population, if 99% of pandas eat bamboo shoots, it's fair to say that eating bamboo shoots is the standard panda behavior. It's the more panda behavior than the 1% or the 0.1% that eat dog turds for a living.
Okay, so what about if pandas had been in an artificial environment for a long time and couldn't get bamboo shoots and were eating something else, but I could show you that pandas originally, and some pandas for thousands of years, the oldest pandas in the world live in Australia, and those pandas still eat bamboo shoots and always have done. That would be something interesting for you as an intellectual, wouldn't it?
So the fact that pandas at 1.8, but something other than bamboo shoots. I mean, your idea that everything since the Aboriginals is an artificial environment, well, those societies were artificial in their own way too.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything as rigid as what you're imposing onto me. I'm talking through things and around things. Right at the top, remember when I said, this is some ideas in a book of ideas.
I'm exploring your ideas with you.
In a way, though, what you're doing is you're going, you've said this thing, and this thing isn't everything. And so I would love it if we could genuinely talk.
I'm trying.
He is trying, right? To evaluate your ideas. Okay, you're the one who gave these ideas, so back it up. Back up your ideals. This is the problem. This is what I have a problem with, right? Especially with women's arguments. Okay, you're the one who spews these ideas. No one's asking. Oh, hey, what do you think? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? No. You choose, okay? You choose to spew whatever your idea is at. Cool. Back it up. Back it up. Back up your ideals. Come on. It's like you don't try to like, weasel you out of it. Weasel your way out of this.
And you could.
I'm trying to address your argument, right? I gave you 4 arguments in response to the things that you said.
And we've only really got to one.
Well, yes, because you got upset at me saying something about the Aboriginals.
But what were you meaning by that? What were you meaning by why were we able to?
I already told you what I meant by
commit
that.
genocide.
We were technologically far more sophisticated.
And what's that got to do with it?
Well, if a civilization is able to produce things like penicillin and the ability for its children not to die in childbirth, I think that indicates that civilization has something positive about it. The fact that the Western civilization has created the incredible material benefits and also other benefits of every kind that we now enjoy says something about the utility of that civilization and that worldview, which is that it is very good for human beings, which is one of the reasons that millions of people travel, many of them risking their lives, from other parts of the world to our societies today.
Okay, so Aboriginals didn't need penicillin because they didn't have any of the diseases, and they were living in incredible.
He's just using as example. Here's the thing, right? Great, right? There are societies right now in jungles living their life how it is. Cool for them. But this is a thing where human beings, we advance. If the majority of human beings don't want to advance, we would all still be living in huts, practically just having bamboo shoots as underwears. But guess what? Human beings, we want to advance. We push the boundaries. Okay? So again, comparing and using the Aboriginals as models for your argument just makes you stupid. It makes you really stupid.
Brilliant nomadic life, so that what they would do is it would use a certain area, then they would move on, and then they would come back. So they didn't have any problems with holes in ozone layers, any problems with climate change, the incredible...
Exactly. That's typical. I'm sorry, that's a typical women tactic. The passive aggressiveness.
Raging bushfires across America, across Australia right now. They didn't have that. So we brought in as more problems than we did solutions, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that that's true. It depends which indigenous community you're talking about. If you look at Native Americans, for example, they were just as brutal as Westerners in many ways. They had slavery. They murdered each other on a regular basis. They went to war. All of these things existed, and they had, of course, their own diseases.
It's a completely different discussion.
No, it's not a completely different discussion.
We brought the diseases that required the penicillin.
Well,
penicillin was
yes.
certainly not invented when we committed genocide on Australian Aboriginals.
So I don't understand your point. My point is we were technologically far more sophisticated. So the celebration of indigenous cultures as these possessors of all things of value, from which we should now take learnings and apply them to our society, and that's why we need to give 12-year-olds puberty blockers, is not a very strong argument, in my opinion.
That's not anything like what I said, though, is it?
Well, that was the argument that I brought up.
I
right?
really thought you were going to be open to me.
I'm extremely open to you, but you have to make a rational argument that persuades me.
Okay, so I made lots of really interesting new arguments you'd never heard before.
I have heard lots of those arguments before.
You haven't heard about
the... How do you know which arguments I've heard?
Because I live in this world, and the adoption argument is I'm the first one making it. I am.
He's not talking about the adoption argument was stupid, right? It was stupid. What the fuck?
No, that argument is not one I've ever heard, and it was interesting, but that wasn't the argument that I responded to. I remember I responded to your argument about native indigenous people having some kind of great wisdom that we should learn from. That was the argument.
Yes, I sense evil cis white men hating oozing out of Fembot. Exactly.
We were talking about
they do.
Hold on a second. You believe that? I don't.
do.
That's fine. I don't.
But look at if you go to Peru, it's the indigenous people who are looking after the Amazon and who are defending it from just huge swathes of it being destroyed.
Sure.
with all that they can.
Yeah, I should actually take back what I said, in that I don't think we have nothing to learn from them. But I think the implication that because they're indigenous, we should learn for everything.
Yeah, but I am suggesting this is something we could learn. It is not. I'm saying it's not the only framework. The only framework isn't women, men. It's not the only framework. So I'm demonstrating to you through my research that there are other frameworks that you may be interested in examining in case there's something interesting
I'm aware.
there.
Yes, I'm
so
aware.
How is it that they woke up and felt like that, but nobody now in the 21st century is going to wake up and feel like that? It's impossible. It's impossible that we all fit into one of these boxes. And the same people who don't like trans people saying I'm a woman don't like the non-binary category, which is an attempt to say, hey, I don't feel like either of these categories. Go, no, you can't be that either. You have to be in the one box we put you in.
I've never said that at all.
This is a thing where feeling, that's the problem. That is the problem right there. How I feel. I don't feel like a man. I don't feel like a woman. Who gives a shit what you feel, okay? You are a woman, you are a man. Now, when you talk about feeling, this is a thing where, fine, I agree. A lot of people have mental disorders or mental issues in the sense that, okay, he's not as typically masculine. Okay, fine, you don't feel masculine. She's not typically feminine. She don't feel feminine. Okay, cool. Fine. Live how you want to live. But to say that I am something else that I'm not, that is the insanity right there. Okay? You are a woman. You are a man. But to just say that, oh, I don't feel like, oh, I'm a man that likes to drive F-150s. I'm not a man that, likes to shoot guns and abuse, just like abuse women and, pump iron. Okay, cool, whatever. Right? That doesn't necessarily make you a man or not. Okay? That's the problem we're having within society. Stop. Women, people like this are actually sticking people into boxes. Okay? That is the thing. Yes, it feels like a sea turtle. What the fuck is like, seriously? That is the mentality that these people have. Stop it. You are a man or you are a woman. Now, how you feel, fine. Feel whatever you want to feel, okay? But to say what you are, that is where people draw the line.
You may not have.
Right,
but
but we're having the conversation with me, so let's just stick with that. The second argument I made was about...
Unbelievable. Like what?
In what way?
You literally started by saying, why am I not woke? And I said, because these are the kinds of things that people who say I'm anti-woke say. And you might not say that, but you do know a lot of people who are anti-woke say non-binary isn't a category. They do.
Yes, definitely.
So I am suggesting that it is not possible that Indigenous cultures that have survived to this day, Aboriginals being the oldest in the whole of the history of the planet, have people within it who have a tradition of gender fluidity, but nobody feels gender fluid today, or nobody feels gender non-conforming today. Of course, some people feel gender non-conforming. What are they meant to do?
Of course, and if you remember at the very beginning, I said that there is some confusion, I think, in our discussion here between people who don't fit into the stereotype of what a man should be and the stereotype of what a woman should be, and someone who claims to be the opposite sex. That's, I think, quite an important distinction.
But I don't see it as the opposite sex. I don't think there's opposites. I think it is far more fluid than that. And I think
you don't think there's the opposite sex, so you don't think there's male and female.
I just think it is more fluid than that, and I trust people when they tell me that is not how they feel inside. And
you're stupid. You trust people. Really? Feminists who don't even trust men? Right? Feminists who would pick the fucking bear. Don't even trust man. But, right? You don't trust a man for your safety, but you trust a man saying he's a woman. That is the hypocrisy right there. So you trust a man saying he's a woman. You don't trust a man being around him for your safety. You are fucking stupid. This is why modern day feminists are idiots. Idiots. Okay? This is why, I'm sorry. And this is the poison that's seeping to modern day women. The hypocrisy, the delusion. This is why I talk about the shit I talk about, because the poison that is affecting women's minds, it is irreparable. It is damaging. It is absolutely society destroying. I don't think reality is reality. That's the shit.
Much like the idea of an orphan, which again did not exist in the Indigenous cultures I've researched. That wasn't really a thing. It wasn't something you could identify as. You were taken care of by the community. It's our framework that requires, I've got to feel like one of...
Technically, orphans today, or I don't know, whatever, kids that, don't have parents are taken care of by the community, i.e. the government. Right? The government is the community. This is the thing where Aborigines don't number in the millions. They number in the dozens when shit like that happens, okay? The orphans thing. It's not like hundreds of people are getting together to raise orphans. That's stupid, right? That's a stupid analogy, right? So, but technically, yes, orphans are getting raised by the community, i.e. the government. Yo, John, what's up? What's up, my brother?
These two. And so some people have now said, can I be this third category? And then people go, no.
That's insane. That's the thing. Exactly. So this is the thing. You trust men faking as women in your bathrooms. In your bathroom. I swear to God. We should have said, okay? Well, would you be in the forest with a trans woman or a bear? You probably should have said that. These women are fucking crazy.
You've got to be one of these two, and it has to be the one you say you are, and that makes people unhappy. The way it made gay men unhappy to not be able to say who they were. It's making them unhappy, and I don't understand why we need to scapegoat people who say that's their...
This is the thing where, I'm sorry, happiness isn't the biggest concern of society, okay? People in general, your happiness isn't important. It's great if you get happy, cool, but that is not the responsibility of society as a whole, your happiness. This is the thing where I want men to understand this too, right? Listen, right? Your happiness shouldn't be dependent on society. It's dependent on yourself. Create, build, have a drive to achieve your happiness. Don't try to the need for society to sustain or to give you a sense of happiness.
I definitely don't think we should be scapegoating anyone. At the same time, because we treat men and women in society differently, the claim that you're a woman has consequences, not only for you personally, but also for the rest of society. It entitles you to certain protections
It is overrated.
that men don't enjoy, and entitles you to access to certain spaces that men don't have access to. And that's really, I think, the big debate when it comes to adults. When it comes to children, there is a question about whether children are able to make these decisions in a way that the decisions that they make, which then have lifelong implications, particularly when it comes to medical
Sure, which I talk about in my book, that very, 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 very few, tiny percentage of it's not children, but of teens do ever seek medication, and even a tinier percentage of those have gotten medication. If puberty blockers have been given incorrectly, have been pushed on anybody,
which they have,
then that is malpractice, and that should be stopped. That is malpractice.
But it's a logical consequence of the claim that if somebody says that they feel a certain way, then they are that thing.
It's not what doctors who prescribe them have said to me. They've said that they only give puberty blockers if that young person is absolutely adamant and on the cusp of self-harm, and they just can't live any other way. It is just
We've had
not
Hannah Barnes
common.
on here who did the BBC report into all of this, and she was told that at the Tavistock clinic some children were given
your book, lady.
if I'm not mistaken, after 2 consultations.
Yeah, well, I talk about the Tavistock in my book.
But what I'm saying to you is it's a logical consequence.
But it's not a logical consequence. It's malpractice.
Okay.
Malpractice is 2 consultations and we give you... No, it's not a logical consequence. It's malpractice. And if we find that there's a hospital near here and there's been malpractice in, hip surgery, we don't close it down and say no more hip surgery for anyone. We say we need more safeguarding, we need more training, we need to make sure there's no malpractice. Far more people regret hip surgery than they do surgery to transition, actually.
All right, we're about half an hour in and Francis hasn't said a word, so how about you have
This reminded me of my childhood, so thank you both. The issue that I have with wokeism is I think you're very accurate in the way you describe it as a cult. And by the way, like we've said before, we see the same things on the right, particularly when it comes to the right in America, where some very ugly things are starting to manifest, things that we both feel deeply uncomfortable with. But let's just focus on wokeism for the moment. The thing that I have the thing that wokeism really makes me feel really uncomfortable is cancel culture, which seems to be part and parcel of that particular ideology. And as somebody who has seen communism and the ultimate form of cancel culture, I find it deeply sinister. And the fact that it's marketed as being kind or progressive, I think is actually gaslighting. It's not kind and it's not progressive. I'll use an example. Joe Lycett, the very famous UK comedian, said that cancel culture has made the UK comedy industry a kinder and better place. It's done none of those things. To strip somebody of their livelihood and destroy their career and impact not only them, but their families, their children, I'd see nothing kind or better about that.
So I have a chapter about this in my book, a whole chapter on cancel culture. And
yes, we get it. You have a book.
The problem I have with cancel culture is the same problem I had with being a Jehovah's Witness. The wisdom is dispensed from on high. If you don't agree with it, you're told to listen, to apologize. If you won't apologize, you kind of get marked. If you continue not to apologize, and you're even though you're not really allowed to present your side of the story, and you can be completely shunned. And that's the same model as a high control group. And then we have to ask the question, what do we do if we know we have a predator in our midst? If I'm on certain comedian WhatsApp groups and women look out for each other and they say, look, this happened to me, it was an unpleasant experience. I don't want to say anything about it. He's quite a powerful comedian, but I just want you to know that if you are in a car with him, or you might want to get a lift with somebody else. So that goes on all the time. We tell each other, don't want to say anything about it, can't prove it, but we give each other those heads ups. And because, say, Joe Lycett's talking about the comedy community has for many years before the Me Too movement, it was just a free-for-all. There was literally nothing you could say. Even if you made a sort of mild remark about, I remember doing it, about things being harder for women, or there being no women invited onto this bill, even though so and so and so and so were free and they're very well known to be good. You would be, I was basically shunned once in Edinburgh for saying something like that about an improv thing, and people would not talk to me in the bar because that was the stranglehold. Anytime you get a kind of absolute power model, that power will be abused. And that power has been abused, and it was abused. So I think the Me Too movement was very important to address that. So what do we do when there's a predator in our midst and the law doesn't really want to do anything about it, or they say, well, there's no evidence for that, or there's no will to do anything about it, or you can't prove it? What do we do? And so that's what that chapter is analysing. But ultimately, there's a whole section I've got on jurisprudence and how there's a lot of evidence that prisons are really there's sort of an overhang from Victorian times when we
Yes,
warehoused people we didn't know what to do with. So you'd put children in the orphanage and you'd put poor people in the workhouse and you'd put people who had mental health issues into a sanatorium and throw away the key. And prisons are sort of the only one left. And certainly there are some people who need to be taken away from society because otherwise they will really hurt people. But most people are better off with community intervention. Because otherwise what happens is you take someone out of the community who was causing trouble in the community or hurting people in that community, you put them in a place that is totally lacking in empathy. And so their problem was they were lacking in empathy. You put them in a place where they are brutalized, where they are, even if they're not physically brutalized, they're emotionally brutalized. Then you say, okay, you've done your time, and we now, having made you less empathetic, put you back into that community. We know that community intervention is better, and crime doesn't go up. So I talked to a really interesting guy called Jared Bartle, who's a jurisprudence expert in Australia, and he said during COVID they let a lot of people out of prisons and gave them ankle bracelets and did community intervention stuff instead, and the crime rate didn't go up at all. Most people are much better off in their own communities. And so what the problem with cancel culture is we go, we don't want that comedian in our midst anymore, so we shun him, and he goes over there. Where does he go? He doesn't leave Earth. So if he is a predator, he's now going over there to do predator things. He's not left, you've moved the problem on over there. But now he's getting more and more and more and more bitter, and he probably hangs out with the 2 or 3 other guys who are in the same position. They exacerbate each other. They get less empathy, not more. What they needed was more empathy to go, don't do that. That's really horrible for them. And then they get sidelined in the comedy community. So you make the problem worse, you just shift it over there. So what we need in the comedy community, I think, is community intervention. If someone's done something criminal, we need to act on that. But if someone hasn't done something criminal, they're just making life awful for the people around them, then we need community intervention.
Dr. Steve Peters talk about this.
So if somebody is a rapist, I don't think that's the same as
I'm not saying it is.
They're difficult. There were lots of men in comedy before Me Too, and some of them still do, but who were kind of predatorial. I think that's what I said. If it's something criminal, we need to work on that. We need to actually get that sorted and get that solved. That person does need to be removed, and whatever rehabilitative work can be done should be done. I think that our whole justice system is screwed in that way, and our whole idea of prison making anybody get better is absolutely screwed on that. I think that's a whole dismantling of a system. But there are all sorts of things on the spectrum there. Again, it's a spectrum. It's not you are or you aren't, you're in or you're out. And so I think cancel culture, a lot of people who are abolitionists and want to, don't like prisons, don't like the way the police operate, are really, really happy to have some quite brutal cancel culture moves made. And I think they are at odds, aren't they?
Yeah, to me, and this was my problem with Me Too, not at the beginning, but where it ended up, where I had a friend who was in the comedy community, who was in the comedy industry. He's no longer in the comedy industry, and I'm not using his name. But he was effectively cancelled because women said that they felt awkward around him, female comedians did, because he stood too close to them and talked to them. He had autism. That's what he did to everybody. That's what he did to me. And this entire campaign was then started. His reputation was destroyed. He nearly had a breakdown. He nearly lost his job because he's socially awkward.
Well, if that's the case, that's terrible. Like I don't know the details of that case or what else women were saying. So I don't want to. I don't want to overly. You can't say his name, and I don't know the details. But if that's the case, that's terrible. And so the thing is, I am a progressive person who's known to be a public.
Feminists don't talk about that. Feminists do not talk. This is the thing where I find it really funny. Feminists do not. Okay, they do not hate on women. They do not talk about women's deficiencies.
Feminist.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I couldn't do the kind of work I'm doing anymore in that space without saying what's going on with cancel culture. Because at the beginning of Me Too, it was really righting historical wrongs and drawing attention to something and shining a light.
Agreed.
But like anything, any tool in the world can be used as a weapon and will be used as a weapon. That's how human beings are. So someone can have a, great tool to get the weeds out of the garden or plant tomatoes or whatever, but that can be used as a weapon. And Me Too is an incredible tool that has been used for great things. Otherwise, Harvey Weinstein would still be out just destroying careers and sexually assaulting people. But like any tool, it can be used as a weapon. And if we don't want the baby to be thrown out with the bathwater, we are going to have to let the baby grow up.
I agree. And then also there was this, and it's still happening now. Let's take the case of Alfie Brown. Do you remember that case of Alfie Brown? So I'll explain to you what happened to Alfie, and then we can discuss it. And I'm going to be factual. Alfie was doing a preview at a comedy club of his show. He did a number of jokes, basically jibes, very funny actually jokes about Corbyn, the Corbynista government, insinuating that he was anti-Semitic. It then went on to Twitter. There was a back and forth on Twitter. People then started to dig up old interviews of Alfie during in podcasts.
She did.
They also, an old routine was dug up, where the premise of the routine was that if you wanted to have a good slur, you needed a hard consonant. A good racial slur, you needed a hard consonant. That's why all the racial slurs had hard consonants in them. And he just went through all of them. And he said, and that is why all slurs have hard consonants. He didn't execute it particularly well. This was a routine that was over 8 years old. It was then dug up, and it was then used to prove that he was a racist. And then it was then used to cancel him. His shows got pulled, lost opportunities, blah, blah, blah. I have a real issue with that. And people claiming that they were offended, and that's the reason. As somebody who has been called many of those slurs, as someone who looks Jewish, I get more than my fair share of anti-Semitism online. And as someone with a Latin American background, I also get that as well online. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Social media is a cesspool, as we all know. And I have a real issue with that. I have a very, very real issue with that. That suddenly you can claim to be offended by something that happened years before and then use it to destroy somebody's career just because you felt offended.
Well, I'm going to go on a large limb here and say I don't think Alfie's career is destroyed. Alfie's a working comic. He's doing all right.
No, he lost a lot of opportunities at the time. Gigs were cancelled.
Sure, I'm sure it was unpleasant, but I don't think it's in the realm of. It's not in the realm of a Louis C.K. who is also back and has won a Grammy. So I think that's the other thing we do need to contextualise.
That's an unfair comparison because Alfie did nothing wrong and Louis C.K. did do something wrong.
But that's what I'm saying. It's a spectrum. So let's talk about it as a spectrum. It's not a kind of black and white. I think if people are going to go back in time and dig stuff up and with an agenda, it's because they know what they're doing, and that's a decision they're making, and that is a part of modern life. That it's unpleasant. In terms of,
I'd say it's more than unpleasant, Deborah. It's more than unpleasant. It is reputation destruction.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just trying to think it through. I think,
okay, fair enough.
I think it's, as I say, Alfie's working and Alfie's very successful. I don't think it's. I think it's not as. It's not like a permanent cancellation. But I also think. So I have a chapter in the book called Freedom of Speech in Comedy, and one thing that I say in that, because I think people always, sometimes the BBC will ring me up and say they can't, Baby It's Cold Outside is being banned on the radio, and the unpleasant part of modern life that people are online trying to be private detectives to try and destroy you over this because I really want to get you for that, and I don't like it. I don't endorse it. I also think comics, I
don't care about the cancel culture thing.
So the first chapter, there's some interesting stuff in there about how modern life is modelling cults. And one of the things that's said a lot is just picking up on what you said there is that people often say the internet makes us less empathetic, or social media makes us less empathetic. And there was, in fact, a study done in 2009 that said people are getting less empathetic. And actually, when you look into it, and I've broken it down in the book, it didn't really prove that at all. But you can read about it in the book. But what I'm arguing, there was another study. It didn't say that the internet had made it; just posited that, but it didn't actually look at that. And then there was another study that looked into it and found that social media made children more empathetic. And so I started looking at that, and what I discovered and what I'm arguing is that every single day, social media, which we think makes you less empathetic, it's trolls and keyboard warriors, every single day, it demands that you be more and more empathetic, but to fewer and fewer people.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one thing I argued against in 2016 when it came up. So I started the Guilty Feminist in end of 2015. 2016, it was kind of in full swing. And this Men Are Trash hashtag came up. And I was like, guys, what do you think a 14-year-old boy who's just trying to figure out how to be a man, I don't know, he's a nice guy, or he isn't in his little self, but he's probably just a little complicated person who isn't anything yet. He's just figuring out how to be a human being and how to be a man. How is that landing with him?
I'll be honest with you, Deborah. As someone who was in their mid-30s at the time and has always, I'm not saying that I've succeeded, but I've always tried to be a good person and do my best. That really pissed me off.
It pissed me off because what I was saying at the time was, okay, so there's again, it's not binary. I don't really believe in this sort of it is that or isn't that. We're all on a spectrum. We're all flawed. We're all doing our best. There are some people, probably on polar opposites, who just get out of bed every day to make other people happy, or some people who are blatant sociopaths and who, psychopaths who are not empathetic at all. But most of us are in the middle, we've got some love, we've got some fear, and all the other emotions are those two emotions in costumes. That's what I think. It's just we're all trying to struggle through. So for me, a 14-year-old boy hearing that, just to use the most extreme example probably, I feel like what he's hearing is you can't be any better than you are on your worst days. And if you're on your best day and you're really trying hard or you advocate for somebody else, it doesn't really matter because we're going to see you as trash anyway. And I said at the time, and I said it on other people's podcasts, I was begging people to stop using it, begging feminists to stop using it. And I think they were kind of riding high a little bit on what was happening in the world. And, there was a time of, a little bit of getting our own back. I think that's what was going on at that time because women had felt not listened to, not heard. It was before Me Too. All we'd had is a march. If we'd even had a march then, probably hadn't even had a march then. Did we have our march 2018? So we probably hadn't even had a march. It was such a time of kind of clawing for something. But I was saying at the time, that 14-year-old boy, that's what he's hearing. And guys who are really bad, who hurt women, when they are caught, I know this is true, psychologists, and also I had somebody in my show from the government where they specifically work on this problem. This is absolutely true. Men who hurt women, when psychologists work with them, truly believe that all men do it or want to do it, but just aren't man enough, quote unquote. That's what they think. So when you tell men are trash, the ones who do hurt women are hearing that and going, yeah, all men are trash. So when men say to me, not all men, I go, yeah, we know. 100% of the men I've been with have not killed me. I know. I live with men. I work with men. I get in a cab. I know it's not all men. I want men who are basically good guys who wouldn't hurt women to tell the other ones, not all men, because the ones who do hurt women, they think it is all men.
Here's the thing, what she just said. This is the problem where a lot of women gotta understand. Okay, you can't tell a person not to steal because you have. This is the problem, right? That I find with a lot of women's logic. It's not all men, but you know what? You men have to tell other men too that you got. This is the problem. If someone just like the chat just said, right? I forgot who, right? Like women know, right, not to abuse young boys. Women know that. Guess what? They do. We have heard so many stories of school teachers having sex with young boys. Do women not know that? Do women not know not to do that? Do women not already know not to have sex with minors? I'm pretty sure women do. This is why this is a faulty logic. Oh, teach the men, right? Tell the men not to kill women. No fucking duh. We as society do not. It's not fuck that. Fuck men or women. Fuck that shit. Okay. It's not about teach men not to kill women. No. We teach people not to kill people. Right? We teach men not to kill man or a woman. Not to kill at all. Right? I don't know. Maybe that's a new age teaching, but I'm pretty sure it's a known thing not to kill somebody. It's pretty sure, right? A known thing not to grape someone, okay? It's a pretty sure thing, right? That we know as a society, as people, not to abuse one another. But this is the thing. We have criminals. There's laws telling you not to do things. And you don't even give a shit about that. Here's women that say, think about the spectrum. No fucking doubt, the spectrum. At the end of the corner, right? At the one end, right? Really bad people don't give a shit. If you know that there's a spectrum, then you know that bad people would do bad things regardless, right, of what society tells them, what men, right, tell men to do. This is the thing where men are not out here promoting, go have a whole bunch of baby mamas. Men aren't doing that. But guess what? Right? They do it. They do it regardless.
The ones you need to tell. You don't need to tell me. I know it's not all men. I think it is the minority of men who are violent towards women. And by the way, male-on-male violence is much higher than male-on-female violence. It is a male problem. But the truth of the matter is, if men stop killing, killing would stop. Very, very few deaths are from women, and generally it's either women in self-defense or in coercive control situations under the grip of a man. That's the facts. So it is not all men. Please tell the men it is. It's not all men, because they don't hear me because I am the other to them.
We'll get you back to the interview in just a sec. But first, characteristics before they turn around and go, you know what? F you. And I see Andrew Tate as part of that backlash, if I'm being honest.
Well,
and by the way, I am no fan of Tate. I want to make that absolutely clear. But to me, when people go, this is awful, of course he's awful. That is a symptom of a backlash. Tate isn't the problem. The problem is what is underneath that has given rise to his prominence.
I would suggest that we cannot blame feminism for the manosphere. The manosphere is far too...
You can. You can. What's the difference, right? What's the difference? The manosphere wasn't there before feminism. It's here now. It's here at the prominent of feminism. So yes, you can. You 100% can.
Blaming feminism, I'm blaming all men are trash, and that kind of punitive, vengeful,
which is feminism.
I think
have created a backlash. That's my argument.
I would say that misogyny is a deep and vast mine, and I don't think you can really blame very recent feminist marches and some hashtags for it. It's much
misogyny, the hate of women. This is the absolute insanity. Thinking that men's content, manosphere shit, is about hating women. No, it's not. I've said this before, right? True men's content, red pill, manosphere, whatever. One, it's about self-improvement. Better yourself. Better yourself, okay? It's about knowledge. Understanding things. Understanding women. Understanding the world around you. Understanding, what you need to do to be the best version of yourself. At the core, right? Now, there's offshoots, right? You can't control, right? You can't control everyone. People will do what they will do. Like I just said, the criminals, they will do what they want to do. So you can't control that. There's some men that will hate on women. Sure. But that isn't necessary. This is the thing where I hated that, again, you don't make the minority as a showcase for the majority. I don't believe men's content is about hating on women. It's about breaking delusions, showing the hypocrisies. It's about, talking about the issues men face. I don't believe it's hating women.
Deeper than that. Andrew Tate is much deeper than that. It hasn't helped, I'll give you that. And I was saying it all through that. I was going, those 14-year-old boys now, they were 16 then. How old are they now? Going to be 24, 25?
Yeah.
And a lot of them are looking to Jordan Peterson. A lot of them are looking to Andrew Tate. And that, to me, again, is a spectrum of manospheric ideas. And then that bleeds into Zuckerberg going, we need more masculine energy at Facebook. I've worked at Facebook. They do not need any more masculine
Well, actually,
energy.
it's interesting you bring up Jordan and Andrew in the same sentence, because I actually see the distinction between the two of them as very telling. Jordan Peterson was a male role model for men of our generation, some men of our generation, a very constructive figure who told them how to be better. And taught them certain values and importance of, there's a clip where we had somebody on our team who had a baby recently, and I sent him a video of Jordan's talking about the most important thing when your child is born is to look after your wife. That's your job. That's your number one job. So he had a very positive impact on young men. The next generation's male role model is Andrew Tate. And I think that difference and that negative evolution is precisely the point that Francis is making. I never really felt that the all men are trash thing was an attack against me, but there are a lot of young men younger than us who did feel that. And that thing you're talking about vengefulness, it's the thing that we find very off-putting about the right nowadays, particularly in America. They're like, oh, now we have the power, and now we're going to show them. And that's exactly what men felt, when a lot of men felt, especially young men who are not as advantaged as people like to pretend in our society. We've just had various reports come out about the fact that the gender pay gap now works the other way and all sorts of other things.
I would like to see that.
Yeah, you should look into it.
I would like to see that.
Yeah, you should look into it. So the point I'm making is that evolution from Jordan Peterson to Andrew Tate, is exactly the thing that Francis is talking about as the backlash.
Do you not think Jordan Peterson has missed the turn off now? I've seen him say some really unpleasant things about women.
Like what?
Oh, just that men can't control insane women, that kind of thing. It's
I mean, no one can control insane women, that's for sure.
I mean,
100% fact. Who can control insane women? Who is controlling these crazy ass fucking women? Nobody. And this is a thing where I hate it. When you are critical, when you hold women accountable, it is deemed as hating on women. It is deemed as misogyny. That is why I do not trust what women say. This is why the backlash that women have against men's content, guess what? Holding women accountable, right? Being critical of the things women say and do is not a hate. It's not a hate against women. If you say that men are trash and me as a male content creator hold you to what you fucking said, right? Criticize the things you said. It doesn't mean I hate women. This is the problem I have with a lot of women. You are misusing the term. It is not hate. When I hold what you say, what you do accountable. Like, seriously, people say it. Hate is a strong word. So recognize it. It is not hate when you critique others. It is not hate when you hold the words, the actions of someone, right, who does it, right, comes out of your mouth. It's your hands, it's your body doing the action. If I hold you accountable for what you do, it is not hate.
do you not find that?
No one can control insane men either. Insane people are quite difficult to control.
Well, yeah, but it's said in a context of, that's what they like. You can find, if you Google Jordan Peterson quotes about
If you
women,
Google
you'll find
anyone's quotes, you can find things that you're
I
not
have
gonna
seen
like.
him say stuff that I find unpleasant.
I know Jordan very well. I've been on tour with him. I've seen 10,000 people turn out for his shows, well dressed, and I've seen him talk to the people who come to his shows afterwards, and all of them to a person say, "You've made me a better person. Here's the girlfriend I met because of you," etc. He's made an incredible positive impact on
I'm not saying
millions of
he
people.
has. I'm not saying he has not said anything wise. I'm saying I find it kind of a bit scarier sometimes when somebody has this sort of respectability element of, look at all my well-dressed fans, and then they can start to say almost anything because they have.
Jordan's done quite
convinced
the
people.
opposite, though. He's become far more considerate and careful over time.
Maybe I missed that phase of Jordan, and I'll look back into it. But I've seen things that I haven't gotten to hand, and I don't want to be misquoting.
Okay.
But I've seen things that have troubled me about Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And
I'm sure. But that doesn't mean he's a bad person. It just might mean that you have a different view of things, right? You and I have a different view of things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I come away from this conversation thinking you're a bad person or you hate men. Likewise, the other way around, right? So what I'm saying, the point I'm making is not, Jordan's human. I'm sure he said things that you don't like. I'm sure he said things I don't like. But on balance, he's someone who's made a huge positive impact on men. Andrew Tate, I see, is very much the opposite of that, right? And the point Francis is making is, I think
that I don't. I mean, again, I said this, right. I'm not a zealot or a zealot or like a follower, right? A devout follower of anybody. I do not idolize content creators, celebrities, and shit like that. I don't think nobody should, right? Process the information yourself. Do not be a sheep, okay? But this is the thing to say that Andrew Tate has not been a positive to anybody. I think that's a lie, right? Just like Jordan Peterson can have his, and I like Jordan Peterson. Just like Jordan Peterson can be a positive to men, he can turn certain men. Like, here's a woman, right, that has maybe misinterpreted or hates some of the things he said. Well, guess what? A stupid man can misinterpret it or interpret it how he wants it, and then, I don't know, be a terrible man and said, "Oh, I learned it from Jordan Peterson." Shit happens, okay? Same thing with Andrew Tate, okay? You can listen to Andrew Tate and be more masculine. You work out more. You focus on your money. You learn that, you know what? Don't be a simp to women, okay? You learn how to be a masculine man, a typical masculine man. That doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. But just like if you can listen to one content creator and interpret it how you want to interpret it, and then use that information, you know, skew that information, and then you do bad shit, does not mean that that person is necessarily bad. Okay? Again, one person cannot control the masses exactly. You can't tell, oh, everyone who listens to me do exactly this. That doesn't happen like that. So people will interpret things how they will interpret. I don't necessarily, like I said, I don't necessarily, you know, bow to Andrew Tate. But to say that, oh my God, what probably he's going to say that Andrew Tate is just a net negative to men, it's like, I don't really think like that.
There's a lot of truth to the idea that this constant, the thing that you were against, the thing that you were speaking against, is what's created that shift. So that now we've gone from Jordan Peterson to Andrew Tate.
I think it's a lot more sinister than that. I think it's, I don't think it's helped. And I opened by saying this didn't help.
No, I agree.
This did not help. And the constant them and using, the cult like them and using, and I do see this on both sides. I see it across the board, across the political scape, and I feel like my side is the progressive left, and therefore I want to keep my own house in order. And I also think the progressive left are meant to be empathetic and helping other people up. That's the whole name of the game for us.
No, they're only empathetic to women or men that wants to be women. They're not sympathetic to men at all. If you're a man that wants to be a woman, boom, they will be sympathetic, empathetic to you. They will love on you. If you're a man, fuck you.
What are we doing saying anybody is trash? It's dehumanizing. Right. I don't know why we're doing it. And I fought against it for years. And I feel angry that it has exacerbated the situation. However, I also think when you look at Project 25 and the Heritage Foundation in America and the rise of the trad wife and the increasing unpleasantness of far-right politics that is rising up, and Elon Musk trying to buy elections across America across Europe for the far right, I think it's just so much more sinister. The Andrew Tate of it all is so much more sinister than, well, if you're going to say we're trash, we're going to build an uber misogynist. I think there's so much else driving it and going on, and I think it's a little cosmetic to say.
100% agree. I think progressives are regressive. What are you progressing? What are you progressing? It's like, it's idiocy, delusion, hypocrisy.
So what is driving it, do you think?
Honestly, I think I had a really interesting conversation, which is in the book. I've got it as an interview in the book with a guy called Neil Datta, who is the head of the European Forum for Sexual Reproductive Rights in Europe. So it's European, obviously, in Europe. And so it's basically a forum, and he gets all the MPs that care that women have. It's really that women have access to birth control, abortion, and cervical smears, for stop cancer, and, just basically that kind of package. And it's basically, he explained to me, and then I looked into it, and this does check out, that around 2012, there was, I don't know how much I really want to say about this, and maybe I should just let people read it in the book. But basically, there was some Christian far-right nationalists who got very angry that they were losing, based on the fact that both the UK and France brought in equal marriage. And it was around that time, and they went, okay, if it's the mad Scandis, the Danes will marry a chair. That's nothing to do with us. But when it's the United Kingdom and when it's France, we've got to do something here. And they came over and they had a forum in, they had a sort of conference in the UK around 2011, 2012, that time. And they said, we've got to stop asking what do we want, and we've got to start asking what can we get. Because if we come into the UK saying no abortion, anti-gay rights, we'll be laughed at as crackpots. And one of the questions they asked was, what do feminists disagree on? And do you know what they came up with? Trans rights. But there'd always been a little bit of a, well, back to the 60s. Is that gay rights? Is that queer rights? Is this
How's this related to Andrew Tate? Sorry, I don't follow.
So it's all part of the same sort of bubbling up of this is not how we want it to be. And I think there's you can really draw a line between the kind of bubbling up of this extreme misogyny, and at the same time that Heritage Foundation family values, and there's evidence that the Heritage Foundation are funding the trad wives. Like, do you know that Ballet Farm?
Yeah, I'm familiar with, but forgive me, I'm genuinely not being difficult. Just like I don't follow how Andrew Tate comes from that.
I think it's just like a landscape. Well, here's an example. Andrew Tate has now been given he was here somewhere in
He
where
was in Florida.
Florida. He's been moved to Florida, but he was moved.
No, he wasn't moved to Florida. He was granted leave by the Romanian courts, and he's a US citizen, so he went on holiday to Florida.
I thought that was somehow given to him by Trump. Or...
No, it wasn't.
Okay,
Trump
well,
wasn't aware.
No, I think Deborah's right. I think the Trump administration put pressure on Romania to release him to be able to go back to the US.
That's what I thought happened.
Yeah,
that's what I thought happened. And that's what I read. And one must always check one's sources on the internet. But that's what I read. And
I think that is accurate.
And it just feels like a sort of rising tide to me.
Okay, let me give you a different version because that sounds a little wishy-washy. But actually, what you're getting at, I think, is not inaccurate. A right-wing person, of whom I know many, would say that what you're describing is a reaction to progressive overreach. Now, I don't think gay marriage is progressive overreach, but many of the things, by the way, I think the part that we've talked about that's missing from this is the social media aspect, which comes along around 2014, and you see the rise of all of this stuff happening. But there are lots of other things that people will describe as progressive overreach to which they're reacting. And Andrew Tate and all sorts of other social movements are certainly a reaction to that, which is the sense that, like, you said it yourself, we now finally have the opportunity to get our message across. And there was a kind of crudeness to that. There was a vengefulness to that. There was
but that in itself is a response to patriarchal overreach, which has been intact for a very long time. You can't expect people to have no voice for so long and be kept in the dark.
Then we're stuck in this doom loop.
And then if not come out and have something to say about it.
If no one wants to forgo vengeance, then we're stuck in this doom loop.
I think it's unfair to say that women took vengeance. They took some glee, I would say. Some women took some glee. But again, this is some women. Feminists are this tiny group, really. When you look at most people in this country are watching.
So the far right, it's just some men. It's just some men.
But
right?
it's some very powerful men.
Some very powerful women. Look, that hashtag was trending, and it wasn't just a hashtag. Let me just finish.
You cannot equate some very powerful men. Who's the equivalent of Donald Trump and Elon Musk who can actually change our lives? Name me that woman. And I'll tell you what it isn't. It's not Hillary Clinton. It's not Kamala Harris. Who is that woman?
Well, set aside those two. I certainly wouldn't say those two men as far right. But
you wouldn't say Elon Musk or Donald Trump are far right?
Definitely not.
They're literally cancelling everything. They're cancelling. They're destroying lives right now.
Perhaps we have a different definition of what far right is. What would you say? What's the definition of far right in your head?
What about them isn't far right? I would ask you. But what about what they're doing isn't far right?
Yeah, I understand your question. In order to answer your question, we both have to agree on a definition of far right.
They've literally said they've taken.
Just pause for a moment. What is your definition of far right?
It's far further than fiscal conservatism.
Okay.
It is social conservatism that says there is one proper way to live, and that way is a heteronormative family, 2.4 children. Women should be having babies. This is all Heritage Foundation values. This is all Project 2025 stuff. And this is well. And also, if you don't agree with this, here's an example of something far right that Trump and Musk are doing. If you don't agree with this, if you go to if universities allow illegal protests, by which they mean protests, the students will be instantly dismissed. This is what the American government are saying. So you're at Harvard, you want to protest, that government decides as a legal protest. The students will be instantly dismissed. If they're foreign students, they'll be sent home. They may be arrested and imprisoned, no matter where they're from. And if the university is allowed it, all federal funding will be pulled from that university. Does that not seem to you to be verging into fascism?
No, I don't think it's verging into fascism.
What would cause your alarms to go off then?
The right to protest is incredibly important.
And if without it, what do we have? What kind of government do we have?
Hold on a second. I'm answering your question. The right to protest is incredibly important. I think the interesting thing about those particular cases that you're referring to is whether there is celebration, glorification, or promotion of terrorism, which is illegal both in this country and in the US. And I think that's probably where the dividing line is on that issue. I'm a little bit confused.
Please do not think for 1 second this isn't going to hit queer people, LGBTQ plus people. It is hitting them right now. There are states where they are arguing to take back the right to equal marriage, and there are states which are putting forward these sort of I can't remember what they call them now, but sort of some kind of special trust marriages.
I've never heard of
where we give you a tax break, but the marriage is one from which a woman cannot divorce a man, basically, without these really old-fashioned, like we're literally talking about the rights that women fought for, that unless you can prove that your partner's been faithful or you can prove that they've been significantly abusive, you cannot divorce them.
Yes.
I mean, we are heading into Gilead. We really are.
None of those are things that anybody here supports. But I'm just coming back to this idea of Trump and Musk being far right. You initially talked about the Heritage Foundation, traditional marriage, all of that stuff. And then we talked about fascism. So is your definition, are you saying Trump and Musk are fascists?
I'm saying that the government is making moves which makes anybody who is frightened of fascism, which should be all of us, very scared. Like, I feel like saying if it's an illegal protest, and what kind of protest does Trump like? You know Trump. What does he like?
I don't know Trump.
Well, you know, you've seen him in power before. If the students were all out protesting in a state where they were taking away equal marriage, and there were loads of gay
I'm pretty
students.
sure Trump is pro-equal marriage, isn't he? And Elon, certainly. I would
They're
imagine.
all pro, well, there's social capital in it, but he hasn't been saying anything positive about gay people lately, has he?
Has he said anything negative about gay people?
I'm pretty sure.
Which way is the wind blowing, be honest, in America about gay rights?
Oh, yeah.
But
And then who's in charge?
yeah, but this is the interesting thing, because it's the worrying thing about the right now. Trump seems like a moderate compared to some of the people who are outside of the halls of power.
Well, then in that case, someone else is pulling the strings and he's allowing them to be pulled, because it is fast going towards.
I don't like, neither does Francis, a lot of the things that are happening in America, in particular on the right. You don't need to convince anyone here of that. I'm kind of a bit of a stickler for definitions, because I think it's important. And one of the things, this is one of the big things that's happened that really always worried me with wokeness. And I think we're now seeing, unfortunately, the tragic results of that, which is when people throw around labels like fascist and Nazi and bigot and all, whatever, irresponsibly, as they did and they continue to do. What then happens is...
Exactly how they throw around misogyny. It's like, I'm a sticker for definition too. Show me the hate. Show me the hate of women. When men say something, please show me the hate of women. No, well, okay, just saying that, okay, that, you know what, we don't want baby moms around. That's a hate of women.
There are now actual Nazis. Actual Nazis, not people who say, you know, trans woman isn't a woman or whatever, but people who actually are doing Holocaust denial, people who are actually saying, oh, Hitler was a good guy, all of this stuff. And we can't call them a Nazi anymore and be credibly believed, because the left spent years calling people a Nazi for, you know, thinking pronouns are funny or whatever. Do you see what I mean?
I think you can, and
it has no effect on the right anymore. It has no effect, because
I don't
the power
really
of those
think
words
you
got
can.
taken away.
I don't really think you can blame some young people who, like, the internet is a vicious place.
It wasn't
and the
young
internet's...
people. David Lammy called the ERG. He went on national television in Britain with Andrew Marr and said that the ERG, basically a group of conservatives who are pro-Brexit, are worse than Nazis. It wasn't young people. It was the entire left. It was the entire left.
We do know that Boris Johnson is with Steve Bannon, who is a white supremacist. We do know that there are links between Viktor Orban, Salvini and others. I'm not backing off on this. Never will I back off on this on behalf of my constituents. And the BBC should not allow this extreme hard right fascism to flourish. And often the prettiest side of it, MPs. I don't care how elected they were, so was the far right in Germany. They're often elected, often giving a cover for the thugs on the ground.
Look, I don't know that it was the entire left. I don't remember calling anyone a Nazi, and I would say myself on the left. I think we've all got a problem that we go on the internet, and whatever the worst things that we see, even though there's fewer of them than the best things, and there's fewer of them. Most people aren't even on social media in that capacity. They're just sharing their holiday snaps and their you know, pictures of their grandchildren. And we decide that's who society is and that's who the left is.
That's true. But David Lammy and prominent left-wing politicians and prominent left-wing activists and prominent left-wing campaigners and prominent left-wing figures all used these words and threw them around deeply irresponsibly, in my opinion. And now we have lost the language to describe the things that are happening.
Well, that may be the case. I'm not suggesting that people should have called people Nazis who were, in fact, who they felt a vociferous disagreement with, or were perhaps, in my opinion, taking steps towards the space we're in now. But I don't think you can blame that for people. If I hear somebody described as a Nazi, it doesn't make me go, I'll show you what a real Nazi is. Nobody becomes a real Nazi who wasn't...
No, I understand. You're right. You're right.
Who wasn't seething with those thoughts.
That's not my argument. I'm not saying we've created Nazis. I'm saying we now can no longer call out Nazis for being Nazis, because the word Nazi no longer has the meaning that it did, because it got eroded. That's what I'm saying. But it sounds like you agree, which is fine.
Sure.
And that's why I picked up on the far right point, because I don't think Donald Trump is far right. I just don't. The guy was a Democrat. If you look at his policies, some of which I like and some of which I don't like, on the broad scale of it, he's a pretty moderate centre-right guy.
I don't think Donald Trump has any ideology except more power and glory for Donald Trump. I think we impose far more intellectual rigor on that man than there's just nothing there except more for me. Elon Musk is the same. It's just more for me, more money for me. How could anyone need that many more billions and still want more billions?
I think it's about money, actually.
And take a chainsaw. No, but it's about what money represents, which is I'm the best, I'm the biggest, I'm the most powerful. Take a chainsaw like, lol, I'm going to cut all the literacy programs. I mean, when you have that much, one thing that I think does point to fascism is who is Elon Musk? Why is he there? Why is he making these? Why is he making these? Was he making any recommendations? Like this is.
Well, the Steelman argument would be that he is a very, very, very successful businessman who knows how to run and create things very
But
powerfully.
an unelected man who is.
It's pretty normal for governments to bring in business people to run certain things. It's
Sure,
very
but
normal.
there's certain things, and there's this is my right hand, Dr. Evil. There's certain things, and there's what's going on now. And I haven't met anyone on any side of the political divide, and I talk to lots of people from lots of, you know, I'm open to all discussions. I'm here today. I haven't met anyone who's not scared of Elon Musk, who isn't going, oh my God, that guy's unhinged. That guy is.
100% agree. It is the left. It is women who are destroying the meanings of words. Women are destroying the meanings of words. Right? To be a misogynist is just if you're a man. If you're a man and you talk about women anyway, okay, you hate women. You hate women. The meanings of words have eroded, have just become useless in today's day and age. Like toxic masculinity, they just throw shit up.
That guy shouldn't be in the position of power that he's in. He's making fast decisions about things he doesn't understand. And the economy is an ecosystem. And you can't just go, we'll cut every community center in America because the government aren't funding that. And they don't understand, but the corner shop around the corner where the kids go and buy their Coke and their sandwich is now going to go out of business. And the lady who lives across the road who does the manicures and so on, where the mums come when the kids are in the community centre is going to go out of business. What are they doing? What are they doing? I think everyone I know is looking at that and going, this isn't wise and this is insane and this is really going to cause a terrible collapse of the economy. And I don't know what an unelected person is doing at this right hand in the White House, now apparently in charge of everything. And the way the wind is blowing towards queer rights, towards women's rights is scary. Women are dying in states where abortions are banned or now are virtually inaccessible. They're dying. And women coming in, I've talked to doctors about this, women are coming in going, I'm miscarrying, please can you, and the doctors are saying we cannot do anything until it is life-threatening. And if we do it, we have to sit there and watch and wait till the point of life-threatening, or we can lose our medical license and we can go to jail. And that's a very, very real fear for these doctors. Doctors are leaving the state because they're like, I can't do my job anymore and I don't want to watch women die and watch women bleed out and or have to prove in court she would have died. So women are already dying in America. And this is why I would never say I was anti-woke.
I think that's...
Because to me, sometimes what people lump into wokeness...
That is bullshit. Because I have yet to hear a story of that. Now, this is the thing. Maybe there is a story of that, but here's the thing where I find it. The left, which mainstream media is very left-leaning, they would be pushing that. They would be pushing that out to the masses. So really, it's like, yes, maybe it's happening and I didn't hear about it, but I think that would be not realistic because, like I said, mainstream media is far left. So they would be pushing out that kind of propaganda.
Is the concern that people have when people who are not, they don't have representation in the big buildings that count for people like them. They don't have anyone in there going, but people like me are dying. And that, to me, is why the word woke is misused to sort of like, oh, well, somebody criticized me because I forgot Jenny's pronouns, is not the same as this is, I mean, obviously, use Jenny's pronouns, what's costing you, but it's not the same as...
I know! I swear to God! This is a thing where I cannot fathom. Because here's the thing where why they love abortion, it's literally the abolishment of accountability. Literally, abortion is literally the abolishment of accountability. No duh, women love that.
We don't need to worry about women dying on tables of miscarriages because they're not allowed to have an abortion.
I've never heard anyone make that argument.
But that's what I'm saying.
I'm anti-woke because I want to prevent people from having an abortion.
But it's just people do categorize it. People do categorize it all as the same thing. It's all your kind of values. When people say to me that I'm woke, it's like you care about these things. The main things feminism should be caring about is are people's lives appreciably worse or appreciably better? Is there unfairness? That's what feminism should be about. Can there be justice where there is unfairness?
Sure.
Agreed. I think when you're talking about how people categorize wokeness, I think that's people who don't actually understand what it means to be woke. I think that's people who just have a very surface level analysis of it and
But
have a
your
quite...
definition is going to be different from mine. I mean, anyway, let's get off the topic of woke, because all we're doing is nuance of a word, and that's what we're criticizing other people for. That's not the problem. The problem is we have two ways of looking at the world and then a million ways in between.
Yeah.
And we are reducing and reducing and reducing to them and us. And we need to understand we are the human race. And our world is getting hotter. My friend's house burnt down in LA. I've got friends in a cyclone in Australia at the moment. The world is getting worse in so many different ways that we are at risk of war in Europe. We need to get on our own team, and our own team is humanity.
I also think as well, Deborah, and we talk about this a lot on the show, I think it's also people need to show courage. I think for too long, we've seen either side go off the deep end. And a large part of it is because people don't say, we're going off the deep end. Part of the reason, whatever you want to call that side, of the left went off the deep end is because not enough people on the center left went, hang on a minute, can we just calm down a bit here? Maybe not all men are trash. Maybe we don't destroy someone for a joke they made 8 years ago. This is not the correct way of doing it. And it's the same on the right. We need the people in the center, which I see you as broadly being center left, us, wherever we may identify as being, we need to actually be able to hold that center.
I'm pretty hard left.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think she is centre left. No,
I'm pretty hard left, but I also I've been in a cult and I know when I'm in one.
Yes.
And so I want to prioritize what's important.
By being in the centre, I mean that, not these fringe little movements, that.
I'm happy to be on the left. I just want to build bridges to the right. And what I don't want to do, and at least not burn the bridges we already have. And I feel like we have suffered from burning some of the bridges we already had. Most people are just cracking on with their day and watching the traitors and looking at what's 2 for 1 in Sainsbury's and worried about where what their kids doing at school and all of that. That's what most people are doing. And so for me, it's those people in the middle where I want to say, hey, we are in danger in this country of losing our abortion rights. We are. Like, there are moves here to be anti-abortion moves and bring the weeks down and then bring the weeks down and then bring the weeks down.
See, that shit is like, you're not gonna win, right? You're not gonna win, okay? You're not going to win the middle. We're in danger of losing our rights to kill the babies we chose to make. You chose to do unprotected sex. Now you want my sympathy that you can't kill. You can't eliminate your accountability. You can't abolish your accountability. I'm sorry. How about this? Don't fucking have sex with men you don't want to have kids with. Don't do it. Don't have sex with men you don't see a future with. Don't have sex with men, right, unprotected most of the time if you don't want to have a child. It's kind of like, you know what? This is a thing where it shouldn't be your right to kill babies. It's not your right, okay? It could be a medical issue, cool, fine. But it isn't your right. It shouldn't be your right to just fucking, just kill a baby. Because it's not men's right, right? It's not a man's right that he can't, that he doesn't, he could like put off for abortion, put off child support. It's a mandatory thing.
And they want it to be like America, and there are forces in this country.
Exactly.
So I want to appeal to people for whom that would matter, who are not politically activated right at the moment because they're just cracking on with their lives and they've never had the time or it hasn't been a priority. That's who I think we should be talking to, and I think we need to be building bridges. And I think if we want a fairer world for people who are gender non-conforming, for gay people, for women who do have different needs, then we have to start building bridges to people who are in the middle and not immediately scold them because they've come online and said something with the wrong turn of phrase.
Well,
and I think we need to be really figuring out how to build bridges to people on the rights that are reachable.
Well, if you want to do that, then I have one suggestion for you based on what you've just said, which is I think the one thing that you will never reach people anywhere outside the hard left with is the idea that we want to build a fairer world for people from this community or this community or that community. If you want to reach people across the political spectrum, you should be talking about a fairer world for everybody. And this is the problem that the left has made over the last 10 years in particular, which is this obsession with identity. It's incredibly divisive because anyone who listens to what you've just said, what they will hear is you want a better world for these subsets of the population. Okay, well, I'm not one of the subsets of these subsets for the population. What does that mean for me? And they might, and I don't know, reasonably or unreasonably, assume from that that what you want is to take something away from them and give it to these people. That's what it sounds like. And this divisiveness along racial lines, sexual lines, it's not going to bring people together. It's the reason I'm against identity politics is not because I want whatever my identity is to be well protected. It's because I know that when people disappear down these rabbit holes and only care about this group and this group and this group, that's when everybody suffers.
It doesn't have to be only, but can you imagine a world in which gay people have the rights that they do in this country now that you agree with, where gay people didn't get up and fight and say, we don't have any rights and we're going to make that our focus? When you look at how gay people got rights in this country, they had to say, for now, this is what we're focused on. That was identity politics. We just didn't call it identity politics. We didn't have that name. How would they have got them otherwise if they'd been like, but also for straight people, because straight people had rights?
Fine. Then you're never going to reach the people that you're trying to reach.
What do you mean fine? What do you mean fine? What do you mean fine? How would they have got them?
Well, Deborah,
you agree with them having them. How would they have got them?
See, you were demonstrating, and earlier in the interview, exactly the opposite of what you claim you're trying to do, which is the moment I say something you don't like, you become aggressive and highly emotional.
Aggressive and highly emotional? I'm just having a debate with you.
No.
I'm showing passion.
No, not especially not at the beginning you weren't. But anyway, what I'm saying to you is...
I didn't like one thing that you said in a way that I found unpleasant.
Yes.
And I did react to that.
Yes.
But if I don't...
So you're not reaching anyone who's listening to this conversation by doing that, is my point. So
you don't know that. You don't know who I'm reaching.
I know.
I know
audience pretty well. I know audience pretty well.
Deborah, can I just
let me just finish this.
But you're asking me to sit here as if it's just entirely intellectual and talk like this. Sometimes I feel passionate.
I'm not asking you to do anything. What I'm saying is your claim is you want to reach people. And I'm saying to you, if you want to reach these people that you're currently probably not reaching, here's some thoughts I have about how better to do that.
But then what you can't do then is just go, I just push to the side. You're an intellectual. You have to intellectually
I'm not pushing anything to the side. I'm saying the method that you are using is not going to be effective for reaching this particular group of people.
I don't really believe you. I think passion is always loved. I think people don't want to see people go,
yes. And
I think people want to see people go, no, but how can you say that?
I'm not against passion.
Passion. No. Emotion. You are emotional. When you're emotional, you're not going to reach more logical people. Or when you are emotional, people will see you that, you know what, you're unstable. It's a turnoff. It's really just like, I'm dealing with that crazy woman.
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying.
I enjoy debate. I don't find it off-putting at all if I see someone go, no, but how can you say that? As long as they're being good-natured.
Nor do I, and that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you become especially
an hysterical woman. Is that what you're saying?
Well, see, you're demonstrating again. Now you're trying to put words in my mouth. You're trying to put me onto a template that already exists, which is a man calling
you.
Yeah, you are. But every joke is only half joke, as we all know, right? So you are doing the thing that is going to put a lot of people off. What I'm saying to you is, if you want to reach across the spectrum, across the spectrum.
Okay.
Well, look, let's be honest, right? You're very good at reaching people on the hard left, and you're very good at reaching women, and that's why they love your show.
But a lot of my people will turn in to see this as well, because I'll tell them it's on.
You're not trying to reach them. You already reached them, right? You claim you want to reach people on the other side, right? That's what you're saying. Now, I think it's fair to say that I'm probably better than you at reaching people who are on the center and center right. Would that be fair? Yes.
Well, because you agree with them.
It's not because I agree with them. It's because I articulate arguments that resonate with someone.
You seem really pissed off.
I'm not even remotely pissed off. I'm just trying to make clarity on this issue, right? So what I'm saying to you is, if you want to reach those people,
she is gaslighting the man. She is using underhanded, like passive-aggressive techniques. She's gaslighting him. She's like belittling. When you're, this is a thing where it's cool, I guess, fine to joke around, but when you're actually having a debate, a conversation, and it's kind of serious in tone, then you start joking around. I think that's where you're disingenuous, right? You're trying to belittle the argument. Intellectuals are how our academics become leftist communist culture centers. I kind of agree.
I know how to reach. Right?
I should agree with you.
No, you shouldn't agree with me. I'm just saying the strategy that you are displaying with your behavior is not going to be effective for reaching them.
I feel like, I don't know, Francis, am I shouting, am I swearing, or am I just going, how can you say that?
I didn't say that you were shouting or swearing.
What is the behavior? It's just me leaning forward and going, come on now.
That's not the way you behaved earlier in the interview. Anyway.
Well, what you said was quite significant
was it offensive?
to me. It was quite, it wasn't, it's not that it was offensive, it scared me.
Okay. So
that did.
Right.
That did.
So anytime I say something that scares you, this is how you react. Whereas if you listen to what I was saying, it's actually perfectly logical and reasonable.
This is quite controlling what you're doing now.
Controlling.
You're controlling the way that I operate in the interview space where I've done nothing inappropriate.
No.
I've just debated you.
No.
Most of the time I've agreed with you.
And I've agreed with you.
I found masses of agreement with
And
you.
I found with you.
And where I haven't, I may have shown some passion in a debate, but this to sort of say, now I control your behavior.
I don't control your behavior remotely. You made the claim that you want to reach people on the other side. And what I'm saying is, this is not a way that's going to work for the following reasons, because identity politics is divisive by its very nature. That's what I'm saying to you. So,
okay, but then what I pointed out to you
yes,
was,
the gay rights movement succeeded by focusing on gay rights.
Right.
I
So
understand that
I'm
argument.
asking you, how could they have done it?
I'm not talking about how they could have done it. I'm talking about now.
But how could they have done it otherwise? Because if you can't show me any other way, then you're just saying it's divisive. So sit back and take what you've got.
I didn't say.
So what's the other way? What's the other way is what I'm asking you.
I did tell you what the other way is, which is to emphasize as much as possible our shared common humanity.
That's literally what I did. I said, we're all going to be on the same side. But
but when you say, well, I want a fairer world for this group and this group and this group.
But I do. I also want a fairer world for men. And I've said that.
Great. Well,
I've said that at other points in this interview. But I literally said, I fought actively in my feminist community
against the men trash. Yes,
but I have argued on national radio many times that women and children first is what an odd rule. And what it means is, if I'm in a rescue situation and I'm in a dinghy and out in the ocean, and there's a 19-year-old young man who is got his whole life ahead of him and is probably weighs less than me and is about
I'm not going to open up another branch. So, men and women and their children first is exactly the right policy. Anyway, let's move on to Substack.
I mean,
say your final thing, and then we'll move on to Substack, where we'll continue the conversation. I am always like this. Yeah,
it's very controlling. Yeah, it's very controlling. No,
Producer's laughing.
If I am out in the ocean, I hope I would get out of the boat and say, look, you're 19, you stay in the boat, I'll drown.
Okay.
But it's hard to get out of a boat of privilege, and society tells me that that's my right. I don't have any children. Why am I in the boat? Why isn't he in the boat? I don't understand it. But it's hard to get out of a boat of privilege, and it's hard for men to get out of their boats of privilege or even see them. So there are spaces in which I argue for men's rights all the time. Men's rights activists always think women feminists don't do that. I do. I argue for men's rights all the time where I see that there's a disparity. And so I am not someone who's going, I'm only fighting for this, I'm only fighting for that. But if you go out into the street and say more for everyone, and you don't say gay people can't get married, straight people can, it's never going to happen. The only reason we have gay rights in this country is because somebody got out and fought for them on a specific platform. So there is also room for specific platforms. It is just not, there's just not a helpful way forward by going, we only feel for each other and everyone else is dehumanized.
The argument with gay rights is different, because what gay people wanted was equal rights with everybody. And all you have to say today is, I want equal rights for everybody. You don't have to talk about this community and that community.
That implies that because gay people can get married, all other rights are sorted.
No, but if there is legal discrimination, let's point it out and fix it.
Okay, so that's what feminism's doing, abortion in America.
Okay.
And fighting to keep our reproductive rights
abortion
here.
is never a case of equal rights, because it's highly specific to one sex, although, as you say, everything is a binary. But it doesn't work that way.
Okay.
Because it's different, because men can't have children.
Right, so therefore we need to fight for a community, and that community has an identity.
And the more you talk about that, the more you push away everyone else, which is the point I made.
Okay, so we can't fight for abortion rights
I didn't say
in
you
case...
can't.
Okay.
I said the messaging ought to be, as much as possible, abortion is a different issue, but on all the other issues that you're talking about, this marginalized community, that marginalized community, etc., the focus ought to be on the fact that we want everyone to have equal opportunities and equal rights.
Sure. And where it is a problem that all human beings, climate change, that's all human beings would benefit from trying collectively to fix that problem, right? But abortion is specifically about women and people of minority genders.
Exactly my point.
So there are times when we do have to advocate.
Yes, but
here's the thing, right? Let's say fine. Let's say you could have. This is a thing where reproductive. Everyone has reproductive rights. That's the thing, right? Reproductive rights, and then fine, okay. Let's say you want the right to choose if you can abort or not. Fine. In the same token, right? And men are saying that now, and I wish these men would say it, but they're not thinking about it. Fine. Same token, okay? A woman said a woman's choice is either she could abort or not. Great. A man's right should be also on the same token is if he will give child support or not. That is his reproductive right. Okay, because it comes along with reproduction. Okay, comes along with childcare. So fine, you want if you want to fight for equality for all, because this is the thing where it's not equality for all, even in reproductive rights, even in abortions, that a woman can choose if she has a kid or not, but a man cannot. Man cannot choose, right? If legally, this is all about legally, not about, person to person or the micro shit like that. No, legally, right? A woman can choose whether she keeps a child or not. A man cannot choose if he has to support or not legally, right? So fine, you want the right to kill a baby, cool. Men should have the right to not support a child or not. That's the thing, right? You want it equal for all, fine.
But there
For
are times
specific
when we
groups.
don't, and we have been. DEI, for example, is a perfect example of this, right? When you push people onto, we started this conversation, right, with this very thing, where you push people into certain positions to increase their representation, often inaccurately. You make the point about London, it's true. BBC in the 1980s did not look like London today, but BBC today doesn't look like Hastings today either, right? So when we talk about representations, it's much more complicated than people who live in big cities who have a particular vision of it. And my point is, the more we emphasize our shared humanity and the need for everyone to have equal opportunity, the less divisive things become. The more we focus on individual communities, the more divisive things become. And that's just a fact. You may say that you need to fight for this group. I may agree with you. It doesn't change the fact that it's divisive.
I feel very strongly that everything is not there. We're not there yet. We're not at a point where life is so equal we can just say
Oh, I'm not saying
human
it is.
beings for the win. I feel like there.
I'm saying it is. I can't. In my personal opinion, legally, I don't know, right? I cannot fathom that. I believe, at least Western, we all have equal opportunity. We don't have equal outcome, but we all have equal opportunity. I don't see that. I don't see that. It's not. I don't see the flaw or the rights that we don't have.
There are still many things to be fought for, and we've lost
What
stuff that
is
we had. You look at what's happening in America; they're losing stuff hand over fist right now. And to me, DEI was only ever about trying to right historical wrongs, and I feel like the gutting of it is really about supremacy for people like Musk and Trump. I don't really think it's anything to do with the fact that we've overstepped. If we'd overstepped, the representation would be very different than how it is. We haven't overstepped. And we're not talking about the casting of David Copperfield on ITV1. We're literally talking about who's in the House of Commons, who's in the Senate. So I would argue against.
You want identity politics, fine, but it's divisive.
I mean, you say things so categorically like it is, and then
but it's what you want. It's what you're arguing.
Everyone has to stop talking.
No, you don't have to stop talking. I'm just saying it's the logical conclusion of the thing that you're saying. You think DEI is about righting historical wrongs, so you want DEI. You think that certain communities don't have equal rights, and you want to focus narrowly on those communities to bring them up to whichever position you think that they should be in. You want identity politics. That's fine. But you have to acknowledge that it's divisive.
Could it not be more nuanced than that, though? That's what I was saying at the beginning. It's not this or that. It's a big, crunchy, squishy, huge thing where we need this, but this can cause this. So then we try and do that. We try and do that. You're very binary. You're very it is or it isn't. And it is, and there it is.
Because some things are or they aren't, like male and female.
And I am going to go out on a large limb and say
there are lots of things that are very nuanced.
That there are very nuanced. And one of those is people's gender identities. And one of those things is how.
And that's why you won't reach the majority middle, nor would you definitely not reach the far right.
We manage to fight for people, like the history of gay rights, how people fight and still manage to, the hard work of creating acceptance, not just civil rights in their communities. It's a hard, long fight. And the straight community has not really done a lot. The gay community's done most of the work to make sure there's an integration so that now most people in this country go, yeah, Paul and Jack next door, they're really nice. Jenny's teacher's a lesbian and it's no big deal. That was a big old hard fight. And I just don't think we can minimize it by going, it's divisive, stop talking. It wasn't divisive. In the end, it brought a lot more humanity and harmony to this country.
And now you've got Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
So you're blaming,
I'm saying, we talked about this with Andrew Tate, we talked about this with other things. Progressive overreach is why Donald Trump is in power.
So you would call gay marriage overreach?
No, not at all. I'm saying all the things that happened. See, again, you keep putting words in my mouth so that you can make me sound like I've said something offensive.
No, I'm not saying you've said anything offensive.
Yes.
I'm trying to interrogate what you're saying.
Yes, and I already
but sometimes you do a bit of a leap where you go,
sorry.
so this. And I'm like, oh, hold on, that's way over there.
Donald Trump was elected effectively. Do you know what his most effective campaign ad was?
I think it was
The trans one.
it was the
the
Kamala's
trans.
for them.
Yes.
President Trump's
Donald
vegan.
Trump was elected because
Yeah, but
people.
that's propaganda. It is propaganda. Most people don't know an out trans
Hold
person.
on a second.
Most people don't know a trans person. That was propaganda. That's exactly what I was saying before about the Far Religious Right and Heritage Foundation and Project 25.
Most people in America reacted to that ad in a very powerful way, which is why it was the most powerful ad, right? The reason that it's happening, the reason that Donald Trump is in power, is that many, many people have had enough of this identity politics, have had enough of the obsession with victim, have had enough about all of this stuff that you are advocating for more of. And my point to you is, if you carry on doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting the results that you've been getting. It's as simple as that. Now, I don't like much of the overcorrection that we're about to experience. And I've been predicting for many years and opposing the woke left for this very reason, that this was inevitable.
I think there's something more sinister going on, and which I've written about in my book, and I did a lot of research. I was quite surprised by what I found, actually. Overall, what I'm saying in my book is...
Great, your book. Here's the thing where what you're not understanding, right? If this is how your book is, it's only going to reach the people that would already want to read your book. It's not going to reach the people that would never even want to read your book, okay? I never even thought about you. He is right. You wanted to reach the masses? This is I was debating this or talking to my friend about this too, right? This is the problem. Because me and him, we watch Sinners. And this is the problem where, I mean, if you haven't watched Sinners, it's just that it is it's racially powerful movie, right? It has a lot of racial context. That's great. The problem is, and I told him this, it is in a period of over racial topics, right? Where we talk about it too much, so much that the movie, the power of the movie is a lot less, and it's more in the woke category instead of the artistic or nuance or forward thinking, mindset pushing, artistry of the movie. It feels more in the realm of what we have nowadays. This woke ideology of race, and that's the problem, right? Where you muddle, the whole narrative, that you muddle the whole landscape, right? And that is the problem with what we're doing. I agree. If you talk about equal rights, right, equal opportunities for all, who complains about that? But if you talk about equal rights for men to be women, yes, society will say, what the fuck are you talking about?
We're all in a cult, whether we're on the left or the right. We've got to break out of it. We do need to understand that we are being asked to empathize more and more with fewer and fewer people. That erosion of our empathy is an erosion of our humanity. We need to rethink the cancellation of the past and instead figure out what we can learn from flawed figures in the past who are never going to agree with us. They're in the past. I've tried to make a very human. I've tried to have
100% agree. That's why I like the movie, right? Sinners. I thought it was good. It could have been great, right? And that is why I don't watch exactly what Mr. Smith said. I don't watch slave-centered and race-centered movies. I don't, because here's the thing. I told my friend this, right? I like my entertainment entertaining. I don't like my entertainment trying to spew propaganda to me. I don't. So, but this is the thing where back in the day when we had the few movies that, would try to provoke thought into, fine, that's cool. That's artistic. That's powerful. That's great. But now it's overabundance. It's just too much. It's just, I'm tired, right? So it loses its power.
Very human look at gender nonconformity and try and make some new arguments that I think haven't been made before. I am very interested in, as a comedian, in the freedom of speech in comedy, and I do want freedom of speech. I don't want censorship, but I am also interested in how audiences do often know the difference between the punchline of the joke and the point of the joke. And I am broadly arguing that cancel culture needs to change. And then I've got a chapter about what we can do about it all. It is a I suppose, a book from the progressive left that says we're doing a lot of things wrong and we need to do a lot of things right. I hope we need to do a lot of things better.
Great.
I hope your listeners like it.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. Shall we do? We've.
Oh.
Is this been 2 hours?
Yeah.
No, it's flown by, but that's because there's been a lot of disagreement. So I think we just do the final question, mate, and wrap it up there.
Okay. Deborah, we always end the show with the final question, which is, what's the one thing we're not talking about that we really should be?
Oh, what's the one thing we should... I planned something for this, and now I think we've already covered it.
This happens every interview.
Does it?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
Very
does.
much.
Yeah.
Okay, the one thing we should be talking about that we're not is, I think... Have you watched Couples Therapy?
No.
It's a show with a New York analyst who's talking to couples and basically, romantic couples. And I don't know why they've agreed to have their therapy televised, but it's absolutely riveting. It's fascinating. And
Yes.
she always asks...
What's up, Keith? Yes,
so
I
guess what's
100%
underneath
agree.
that? So one of them
Progressive is
saying
oxymoron.
he's a child. I come home and, the table's covered with stuff and he's, been playing with the baby, but he hasn't done anything else. And why can't he clean the bathroom like a grown-up? And then she will go, what's under that? What's the feeling? And sort of like, well, it's that I have to do everything. And what is that feeling? It's that I have no help. I'm alone. I'm lonely. And is there a time in your childhood when you were lonely? Yes, my mum left me alone. I was a latchkey kid. And she'll keep going underneath. That is what we are not doing. Like the three of us here today, it's like if you push my buttons and I lean across the table and go, no, but how can you say that? You immediately go, firstly, my buttons are pushed. Like, what's this man telling me about the way to communicate? And so what's behind that? Well, behind that is, I was in a very patriarchal cult where men told me how to do everything. I don't want to be told by a man that I'm communicating incorrectly just because I'm leaning across the table and showing some passion and that I need to, calm down. Well, what's behind that? It's the fear that I'm going to be controlled, and I was controlled before and I'll never be controlled again. And then you get triggered and you go.
I wasn't particularly triggered.
Well,
to be
you
honest.
claim that you're not, but there are times when you really get cross.
No, I get cross when people misrepresent what I say. That pisses me off a
And
lot.
what's underneath that? What's that feeling?
I don't like when people lie about me.
But okay, but do you think I'm lying or do you think I'm misunderstanding or...
I think that in being offended or upset by something that I've said, you are then lashing out and trying to misrepresent me.
Okay, so you think I'm trying to misrepresent you
Yes.
rather than what you've said has landed with me in a way that I think that's what you've said.
I think
That's
that,
interesting.
well, the reason for that is to win an argument, the easiest thing to do is to effectively say that somebody said something else. For example, like when you said, are you being hysterical? Now, I know you were partly joking.
I was joking. I was smiling.
I know, but, well, not quite. But part of the thing there is, when you do a joke like that, what you're really doing is you're hinting at a stereotype that exists in people's head, which is a man dismissing something a woman says because she's being hysterical, right? So you're trying to push me into that box
That's
where I
about
don't
me.
want to go.
What's going on for you?
What's going on for me is I don't want to go in that box because all I'm doing is exploring your argument
And
in
why
a fair
don't you want
way.
to go in the box? What's wrong with the box?
Because the box is not representing what I'm actually saying. When I'm simply taking...
But what's the emotion of, I don't like being in a box? Where's
It's not
that
a
come
box,
from?
it's the box that you're trying to put me in, which
Okay.
is a man who's telling a woman she's wrong because she's being hysterical.
So that box, which is you don't like things projected upon you, basically.
I don't like people describing me in public in a way that's inaccurate.
Okay, but
And that's a pretty reasonable thing to feel.
Okay, so you're not really playing the game, which is what's beneath that. What's the human thing? So my thing is, behind that, there's, you might try and control me. That's nothing to do with you, right? That's me vulnerably going, and if I went below that, I'd be like, why don't I like being controlled? That makes me feel unsafe. And why do I feel unsafe?
Well, that's easy for me.
So,
Look, as a public person,
Yeah.
what people say about me is what people will then go and believe, right? So people putting out false narratives about me is something that's necessarily something I'm going to be guarded against.
Sure. Okay. So you're not really playing the game because the game is a sort of vulnerability piece. So it's sort of like it's.
Yes, but
you're
I'm not
still
going to make
pulling up the
something
armor.
up to pretend to be vulnerable. I'm telling you that, like, what I regard somebody misrepresenting the core of my argument, right, as something that is dishonest in honest discussion.
Do you understand? Is it clear to you that there were times when I felt you did that to me?
That I misrepresented your
Yeah,
argument.
or you just misunderstood it, and
I don't think I ever misrepresented your argument.
Okay,
No, I didn't do that.
That's so interesting to me. So when I say something, and if you take it in your framework, sometimes you'll present it back to me, and I'll.
And this is the thing where this is why I honestly believe, right? A lot of women fake being intellectuals. Because here's the thing where the problem when you're, and I think a lot of people do this, right? How you fake being an intellectual, where you muddle, right, your conversation, your logic with emotion, then it's not truly intellectual. It's not truly logic, right? Because the base, or it's muddled with emotions. So that's the problem where you're not getting it coming across correctly.
But that's not what I said, or that's not what I meant.
So when did I
And-
misrepresent your argument?
I thought, well, a bunch of times. If you watch it
Could
back,
you give an example?
you will like the thing about indigenous people. Well, they're only such and such percent, they're a tiny percent. And I'm like, no, but that's not what it's about. It's not about the percentage.
But that's not misrepresenting your argument.
I don't
I'm
think
making
you
a
can play
different
this.
point.
I don't think you can get there. Watch the show though. I think it'd be really, really interesting. I don't think you can get to the place that I'm trying to get. It's not about going over the arguments. It's about how you feel. Like when you say, oh, I get really...
Stop it with how you feel, right? This is, again, this is, I said this to a friend where this is what I like, there's some times that, right? I've been thinking like, should I have a co-host, right? Do a co-host where I can have a podcast and have a co-host where there's more back and forth dynamics. And I've told him that, you know what, this is a problem where one, I definitely wouldn't be able to have a woman as a co-host, because here's the thing. The problem is you care so much about how you feel. Then you can't get the logic across. You can't get the information across when it's constantly how you feel. Talk about how you feel, how I feel. This, like, seriously, feelings when it's in it, it's very destructive, right? It's very destructive. It's very illogical. Okay, so. And it muddles the conversation. That's why talking so much about feelings.
So that's why I think what we're not really talking about.
I already answered the question. When somebody misrepresents what I'm saying, I'm naturally not going to like doing that.
Okay, I didn't try and misrepresent anything. I had a feeling of that's not what I said, or that's what you meant, or it was a feeling, so I pushed the ball back to you.
No,
no one was trying to misrepresent you.
You know what it reminds me of? We had this guy called Imran Ahmed on the show. And we talked about online censorship. And he made some very good points, and we were agreeing for about 90% of the interview.
Yeah.
And then I said something he didn't like. They didn't agree. And suddenly the mask came off, and he instantly came out as just like, he started calling me names and doing all this stuff.
And your sophistry right now is both transparent and deeply disrespectful. And I warn you that most of your listeners will think to themselves, actually, Konstantin's being a bit of a dickhead right now.
And to me, I experience that a lot with people who are arguing from the position of high empathy. That happens quite a lot, where somebody pretends to be reasonable and they're having an agreement and whatever, but the moment I say something that makes them uncomfortable, as I said with the indigenous people and us being sophisticated, suddenly they show a different side to themselves.
Yeah, but that's normal and human. If somebody says something that is sort of feels... what I'm trying to say to you, the thing we're not talking about is what's behind all of this. And so online, when people are like, you said this, you said this, you said this, you said this, you did this, you did this, you did this, I'm right, you're left, you're in that box, I'm in that box, I'm an Andrew Tate fan, I'm a this. What's behind it all, I think, is I don't feel safe, or I feel hurt, or I feel boxed, or I feel projected upon too. And I think that's what we're not talking about. Really deep down, that's not what we're talking about. So I didn't deliberately misinterpret anything you said, but it's interesting you thought
this is the thing where when you want to get a message across to people, okay? And you do it by manipulating someone's emotions. I think that is fake. I think that's true deception. Where I'm, in my personal opinion, right? This is why I say I'm more open-minded. Just be logical to me. I can, if you are, like, let's say a feminist, right? I'm talking to a feminist. You can change my mind. 100%. Anyone can change my mind. Just make it logical. Make it just logical to me. I'm not saying that, oh, shoot me facts, right? Shoot me facts and statistics. I'm saying make it logical to me, where I can't really rebuttal it. So even if it's a woman, a feminist, whatever, say something to me logically, and that, you know what, I see the logic in it. But when a lot of women, they can't do that. They can't speak you on the logic to change your mind. So what they do a lot of times is use emotions, use feelings, right, to deceive you, decept you, and to change things up, to try to subvert you. And in my opinion, it's lowbrow. It's very lowbrow, and I just feel like that that is not how you go about maybe communicating to somebody. Yes, maybe between women, okay? That if you want to talk about feelings, even to men. But this is the thing where if you want to have an actual conversation, a debate, it's different, right? So it's not like we're talking about, oh, how we're feeling today, or how our thoughts on certain things. No. It's like, you know what? We have two opposing ideals, right? If you have two opposing ideology, it is better to go about things logically than try to go about things emotionally.
But I didn't. I genuinely can tell you this absolute honest place. I didn't.
Deliberation is a complicated thing, though, because sometimes people do things subconsciously.
Sure, but consciously, I did not misinterpret anything. I heard it, and then either I felt like, I don't know what territory we're going into here, but this doesn't seem great to me, or that happened once, or all the other times, I was sort of like, wanted to like passionately engage.
Sure, no, and I respect that.
And I know if I ask those questions of, I'll ask you, Francis, when you...
I've seen people be shot at during protests by people using the same slogans. I've seen Jeremy Corbyn openly support Chavez's government. I have a very visceral reaction to that.
So I think it's very interesting. So, I mean, this is too long, but I think...
Okay, well, it's about to be over. I thought it was interesting, right? I like these videos. I thought this video was interesting. I've never really seen... I've seen clips of these guys, especially the other guy before. So I kind of like his logic sometimes. So I hope you guys like it, right? Because I definitely want to watch their other content, right? And explore, because this is a thing where I like the logic in it. I like the it's a bit more meaningful. I don't know. I kind of like how it goes about it. It's not always like we're spewing hate. We're griping about women in a sense, right? So I don't know. What do you guys think? I liked it, right? I have thought about that. I have been thinking about that. I want to down the road, right? I want down the road to bring in guests. I really do. I definitely I haven't, because right now my schedule is all over the place. Because sometimes I have like nobody on, right? No chatters on. And sometimes I do have a bunch of people chatter on, but I didn't plan certain things. So I definitely down the road definitely will be including special guests or like followers on. So definitely stay tuned for that. Okay. But thank you, Keith, Mr. Smith. Let's see. Big Bars, Exodus. Everyone else, thank you guys for coming by tonight. Thank you for the love, thank you for the support, thank you for checking out my videos. Yeah, hope you guys liked tonight's video. If you guys do, please tell me. Please check out my other videos. It will be cool. Thank you. All right, guys, that's it for tonight.